I got those two on.
Okay,
It's on my list of things to buy is one more splitter, so I have the option to do the combination.
all right.
Well, it's always.
We have audio and visual, Jeff.
Hey, welcome everybody. We're here for the Lyon County Board of County Commissioners, Wednesday, June 29th, 6:30 p.m. Special meeting regarding the Dayton Bridge and Drainage Master Plan discussion. Please, everybody, put your phones on silent right now, which I will do the same thing. Is Joey here? Joey's always here. Joey, turn your phone off. Joey violate no matter what meeting we're in. Joey always has his phone go off. Nancy, take it from him. Okay. To avoid meeting disruptions, please again, place your cell phones and beepers in the silent mode, and we got to change that verbiage. Does anybody carry a beeper anymore? Except for Jeff Page. Board reserves the right to take items in a different order to accomplish business in the most efficient manner. Items may be combined for consideration, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. Restrictions on comments by the general public. Any such restrictions must be reasonable and may restrict the time, place, manner, and comments. Manner of the comments, but may not restrict the comments based upon viewpoint. And I just noticed we don't have microphones up here. You guys able to catch the audio? Okay. So we're gonna do the roll call now. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present here in our temporary chambers. And we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance now. And Andrew Haskins has graciously volunteered to lead it for us.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, public participation. We're gonna open it up for public participation, the first one. Before we get started, I would like to say this may get a little heated tonight based on what transpires. So everybody just remember it's a hot summer night. We got air conditioning, which maintain a nice cool level ahead. But let's go ahead and open it up for public comment. Jeff, where do you want to step up and sign in for public comment?
right here.
Okay, if you want to step up over here, if you've got any public comment for anything not on the agenda. All right, anybody online? All righty. Sir, okay, if you can step up right up here and sign in by Mr. Pidge.
Okay, quick question is, you said things not on the agenda. So
Right.
as it comes up on the agenda, will we be allowed to comment at that time?
Yes, before any action is taken. Okay, possible action, review and adoption of agenda.
Second.
We've got a motion. We've got a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Let the record reflect it passed unanimously. Okay, number 5, county manager. Sir, you're up.
Good evening, Jeff Page, County Manager. For the record, I thank you for all the people in Dayton who showed up tonight. Those are on Zoom listening. 2 significant discussion topics tonight affecting the Dayton community. The first is dealing with the 2 different drainage master plans. Mr. Haskin and staff will be presenting on both of those. And then after that, we'll be discussing, requesting the board to provide us direction as to where we want to build the second bridge. So I've already been asked, so I just want to clarify, well, if you don't have the money for it right now, why are we making the decision now? Because I have to have the decision as to where we're going to go with this, so we can start working on pre-engineering, so we can start applying for grants to build. So that's why we're having a discussion. The second question I've asked is, I've been told is, why are we even doing this meeting? You're just gonna tell the board what they're gonna do. I don't know how many of you have ever been to a board meeting lately, but I don't know, ever get to tell the board what to do. Because if they would do what I wanted to do, no, I'm just kidding. So that's where we are. Pretty much Mr. Haskin and his staff operation tonight. I'm here to answer any questions and assist Andrew with what he's doing. So if you want to read an item, whichever one you want to go in order in, Commissioner Gray, but read the item in the record so we can get started.
Got it. Thank you for that opening. Item 5A, possible action, review and adopt the North Dayton Valley Area Drainage Master Plan. Mr. Haskins.
Andrew Haskin, Lyon County Community Development Director for the record. I'm just going to give a brief introduction. We have Damon from Far West Engineering that's going to give a presentation on both the north and the south drainage master plans. We'll take a vote on adopting each of those individually, but so we'll take a pause in the presentation as we switch through the two master plans. Adoption of the drainage master plan is really important because it allows us to take a look at stormwater drainage on a more holistic approach, rather than taking a look at it from each individual development's perspective. Currently, what happens is when a development application comes in, the developer will usually work with their engineering team to design drainage facilities, and not necessarily taking into consideration all of the other potential developments in the area. So the drainage master plans really take a look at everything and prescribe a set of improvements, and it's really the first step in or adopting these plans is really the first step in working with the developers to make sure that we can get some of these facilities built in a uniform manner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Damon.
Damon McAllister with Far West Engineering for the record. So I'll try and keep this presentation to about 30 minutes. I'm going to talk about the two area drainage master plans. One's going to be on the North Valley of Dayton, which is basically north of the Carson River, then the south side, which is kind of the industrial areas and the airport area. So I'm going to start out with the kind of a little bit of the background of how it started. So this began back in 2017, where this ADP is the Area Drainage Master Plan acronym that you'll see through here. This was funded through a FEMA grant that was obtained by the Carson Water Conservancy District. And so they extended out an invitation to Lyon County and Story County to kind of collaborate together for with this grant for looking at drainage issues at on the north side of the valley that includes both counties. Following that,
Damon, real quick, I'm sorry. Before we go on, so you're going to discuss both master plans now, north and south?
correct. I'm going to start with the north. one.
Okay, let me read in 5B and then we'll take action separately on both of them, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to discuss 5A and 5B. 5B is review and adopt South Dayton Valley Area Drainage Master Plan. So I just want everybody to know we're discussing both of them right now, but action will be taken separately on each of them. So I apologize for making sure that.
Well, that's right. Pretty sure I lived in north first, so if you want me to pause at that point.
No, that's fine.
Okay, understood. Okay, so this a little more background, like where most of this was funded through a FEMA grant. There's a little bit of money that was chipped in by both counties for the area drainage master plan. So I'm with Far West. This area drainage master plan was put together by J.E. Fuller. It's out of Tempe, Arizona, and they teamed with Loomis and Associates for doing kind of the civil engineering. Our role was kind of representing the county, kind of the quality control. We kind of knew the issues around here, and J.E. Fuller really didn't come from Arizona, so that was kind of our role. But I knew enough about it, so I should be able to wing this presentation this way, I hope. Okay, so the purpose of these two area drainage master plans was to evaluate and identify flooding hazards in the Dayton Valley, and then develop mitigation alternatives to address the flooding issues that are common in this area. So I'll start out with the North Dayton Valley area. So unfortunately, I have a laser on here, but when I point at the screen, you can't see anything. So I'm going to try and describe it as best I can. If you don't answer the question, if you're right, they can interrupt me.
Let's hold the questions till the end, if that's okay.
Understood. So the limits of the drainage basin are shown by that purple line, the study area, the watershed. You can see in the legend at the bottom. But the Dayton Valley Area Drainage Master Plan focus areas was in the black area. You can see, you know, it's north of the Carson River, bisected by Highway 50. You can see at the north end is Story County and Lyon County. So that the basin incorporated both of them. Mainly the area that's common to Story County is the Mark Twain area. So starting out with any drainage study is a lot of data collection. So Jay Fuller and their team took a look at the past subdivision drainage reports that were prepared for all the subdivisions within the area. Also looked at previous studies such as the flood insurance studies. Mainly those are funded by FEMA. Also looked at the FEMA floodplain mapping, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers alluvial fan mapping. That's kind of what we show in those yellow orange areas. Those are kind of the alluvial fans that are common on the north side. And by basins, and they can kind of, the outline of them shows like where there's a lot of a risk rating. So when there's storms, a lot of that alluvial sediment is moving through. So they're either rated from medium to high. That's based on the Corps of Engineers mapping. Also, they coordinated with the Nevada Bureau of Mining and Geology, which is at NDMG, as well as the U.S. Geological Survey, or yeah, for the geological mapping. And then you also coordinated with the county's GIS layers because for figuring out like the land use and buildings, et cetera. Because with this model, it's kind of a two-dimensional model going into a little bit later. It kind of showed how when a storm hits, how it kind of moves through the areas, kind of hits buildings, its culverts, et cetera. So the GIS and just starting with that data collection was the building block. Also with the back in, shoot, that's almost well over 4 years ago now. We had an open house where we kind of got feedback from the public to talk about the areas like either where they've lived for here a long time, like Joey, I think he was here for several times at this meeting, but talking about what their experience has been, photos they've shared of where they've seen flooding, what affected their house, et cetera. And some of those photos are shown here. But that was really useful so that you could really calibrate the model of what it showed versus what was actually happening and what people had experienced. The big issue was the topographic mapping. And kind of catalyst for starting this drainage master plan was that the USGS was going to be doing a LiDAR flight. And LiDAR is a light detection and ranging kind of technology that uses light, and they fly it with a plane, and the head kind of measures down what the refraction is, and it creates a three-dimensional map, very detailed. It's interesting that USGS was doing it to try and locate fault lines within this area. So we piggybacked with them to use that technology to create a three-dimensional model of the whole area that we could be able to use within the model for doing the simulation of the storm events. And that was flown back in October of 2017. So then based on that LiDAR, there's kind of an outlook of what the detail shows. So what that helped us, the modelers, to understand the topography out there is like what's going on in the upper watershed. So it's really steep. So understanding how the channels, how they feed down into the lower valley area, and how those alluvial fans, or what they call Piedmonts, how those are fed by that runoff. And also taking a look at where those areas where there's high sediment transport, where there's a large runoff, people get sediment going up their basements or in their backyards, et cetera. Also kind of helped them see how the flow is distributed in shallow flows and how those shallow flows kind of meander in alluvial fans during certain events. And it's kind of, you can see in this graph, the blues that shows where it's kind of maybe a little ahead of myself, but that's what a 100-year storm event looks like coming off of the mountains and flowing down to the river. So also we took a look at how historically how the runoff has occurred, mainly the major channels. So you can see in the light blue, you can see where historically back in 1948, when Jeff Page graduated from high school,
Yeah.
and you can see how things change. and then less up to 2018 with the dark blues. A lot of it can be changed by development, but a lot of it's just naturally how things change with large storm events, and it skips the bank, creates a new path. Sorry about that, Jeff.
No, you're fine.
So next was doing the hydrology portion of it. So running the storm event over the site. We use the NDOT's method for a storm event in this area. And we looked at 3 different types of events: a 25-year 24-hour storm event, a 100-year 6-hour storm event, and a 100-year 24-hour. Those are kind of in line with the Title 15 code for Lane County on how we require development and others for stormwater detention, sizing culverts, et cetera. And so it's just kind of that graph kind of shows on time and percent precipitation what happens, how a normal storm flow passes through and its intensity over that unit of time. So it shows us 1, but that could be over 24 hours or 6 hours. You just multiply it by that hour. So then the flood hazard assessment, this is kind of where they got into the details where they started running the model. They took that LiDAR surface, applied that storm event over it, then see how the water comes off the hillsides and floods through the area. So they created those, this is where it kind of gets in the detail, but they created like 3 different models. One in the upper watershed, the lower watershed, and the Gold Canyon, and they kind of knitted that together. Just because the data was so huge, they had to break it up. And then kind of coupling that with the land use. And so, I mean, the detail that these guys went to, measuring where the culverts were, the diameters, the inverted elevations, really created a very comprehensive 3-dimensional model that really captured how that runoff flows through, how it goes through detention ponds and subdivisions, et cetera. And then, unfortunately, you can't really see it very well, but there's this blue line, but those are what we call the floodplain cross section. We create over 200 of them. And those were like a kind of snapshot to say, okay, during a 100-year storm event, crossing this drainage area, what's going on there? So it'll tell you where the flow is going through, the velocity, and the depth. And we basically looked at all the key areas within the valley where storm water was kind of congregating, either in a ditch or in a channel, to kind of understand where those flows were going. And then the output of that would be to create this model. And unfortunately, I don't have the software. I could show how it happens over a 24-hour period, but this is a snapshot at the peak flow period of a 100-year storm event of 24-hour. And in that legend in the bottom, you can see where the red, where the depth of flows are over 6 feet. And those are mainly, we can see like in the residential areas, that's where the detention ponds are at. So they're functioning as they should. But also you can see where 6 Mile Canyon Creek is coming off of, comes through the canyon and then goes into that the valley, because that alluvial land, that apply area. We're almost said all that water just kind of loses its energy and just spreads out. So you can see that fan, but then once it hits Highway 50 during 100-year storm event, those box culverts they have underneath there weren't quite large enough to be able to handle these events, so it starts stacking up. And then you can see the largest one over by Cardelli, how it then goes gets onto the river by the Frisbee park area. And here's just showing.
There's a couple open seats up here if you want.
Oh, okay. Nancy, can you hear me? All right.
Sort of.
All right, I'll speak up. So then this is just showing the discharge. So in cubic feet per second, or CFS, kind of matched up with those depths of flows. So then now we kind of know where the storms are occurring, where the water is running, where it's flooding properties, et cetera. So then next, like, okay, what are the necessary improvements to mitigate these flooding issues? So we looked at, what are the flood hazards to pedestrians, to vehicles, to buildings, as well as the inundation depths to buildings. So that could be businesses, commercial buildings, as well as residential. And in the model, we, with that LiDAR, we actually got a footprint of every building and pretty much knew its height. So when that model runs through, you can see, if you got it zoomed in, you can just see how the water can move through the subdivision during that flooding event. So based on that, then looked at the output for 100-year storm event, which was the highest flows for hazards to pedestrians. And this mainly those are going to be in the drainage areas. We can see that in red where it's high, orange is moderate within the areas. And you can kind of see where streets are at, where it kind of floods through a subdivision or another area, which creates a risk to pedestrians during the storm event. And kind of what we use as pedestrians were basically we're kind of small children, something about 60 pounds or less. That's kind of the risk factor versus David Burketta size, which they probably stand a big foot, big guy. So then we looked at the hazards for vehicles, mainly where streams or runoff is hitting a roadway crossing. And the benefit of that was looking at high risk, very high versus high risk. So the very high were the kind of red stop signs, and then the yellow was where there's high risk. What that does is it gives the roads department an idea of where they should put up some signage for in what areas to warn pedestrians. Well, pedestrians and vehicles don't cross this area, you can see water crossing the bridge or crossing the roadway. Then we looked at the building inundation assessment. That was really where then we get into the details of like what homes, this is up in the Mark Twain area of where the runoff is occurring and where homes are impacted. Unfortunately, the scale is a little bit hard, but you can kind of see a little, when you see a small red dot, that's where there's a high inundation hazard to that homeowner. What the data is used for that, for the future for the county, if it's adopted, is that allows the county to know where those depths are at. So if someone wants to build a garage or a home or something like that, we can basically tell them what the finished grade should be of their home or garage so that it doesn't get flooded based on this information. So if you put in a permit for whatever, then Andrew and his crew can kind of zoom in that area and say, okay, then you need to be at this elevation. So next, with those flooding, they said, what is the cost to the economic cost to the entire community? And that's where FEMA has this HAZUS analysis, and it's a kind of a program model where it says, okay, if you're having this flooding occurring and it's this deep and you have this type of a building, what is going to be the cost or the damage costs for the replacement or repair of that facility? And so they kind of ran this model through this FEMA software, and then they developed for the those 3 storm events where you see that recurrence interval. That's mainly by storms. The 25-year 24-hour storm, the 100-year 24-hour, and the 100-year 6-hour. By looking at the building economic losses in residential, commercial, industrial, and others that are like culverts, roadways, other infrastructure type of facilities. So then you come up with the total cost, and the biggest cost damage will occur during a 100-year 24-hour storm event at an estimated cost of $15.4 million in that north area. So next was like, okay, what are the improvements that need to be invested to mitigate or prevent those the risks to pedestrians, vehicles, and damage to buildings. So what we did is me and J.E. Fuller, they broke it into drainage areas, and you see in the legend. So what's in red is the Mark Twain area, where they said, okay, we're going to have to put in a series of basins, culverts, channels. They'll take that runoff and take it out of the flooding people's areas, get it to a discharge point where it can then move on to it. Usually it's a natural channel, let it go onto the river. The Rainbow area, which is that north east area. Then you have Fort Churchill, which is the pink, which is down like on Fort Churchill Road on your way up, just past the treatment plant. The Rose Peak area, which is in red. Gold Canyon, which is down coming into the Old Town. What they propose is just a rear the spillway for people and we're up there. And then 2 other areas is in bright green. That's the 6 Mile Canyon which mainly just said, we just need to create a bigger channel, just to channelize that, so it doesn't go into that alluvial fan type of a situation. And then the last are the along Cardelli ditch, which are those diamonds. And I'm sorry, diamonds, the stars. And then this kind of zooms in where along Cardelli ditch, there's a lot of those drainage paths that cross over or hit the ditch. And what happens is that under the 100-year storm event, it just takes the ditch out. So we're looking at, okay, well, what can we do to get the water either over or under the Cardelli ditch so that this will mitigate irrigation, the uses of irrigation, as well as for safety. So price tag. So with those 7 basins that we looked at, we said, okay, well, what is going to be that cost benefit analysis? Like, what is the biggest cost impact to that area? And what is the capital cost for those improvements? And what we came up with, and kind of bringing that balance, was that rainbow drainage basin, you get the most bang for your buck at $5.5 million of investment for those stormwater mitigation improvements. And then the rest are the priorities of the other basins. So you can see that Mark Twain at $28.5 million, you can get a lot, but it's also going to cost a lot. So that's why they said that as maybe the second benefit. Also, it did, that's a lot of money. So trying to maybe starting slow and trying, like I said, getting the most bang for your buck. That's how we prioritize it. But the total is quite a big number. So that concludes the North Basin. I'm going to move now on to the South Basin. I'm going to kind of skip over the process they went through to do all the hydrology and the LiDAR and all that, because basically it was all that same data. So we took it another step and we moved over to the South Basin. So here again, I won't use Jeff's name again on this, but it does show the 1948 drainage areas and the old channels and the new channelization through the basin area. The limits of this project are shown in yellow, which is basically everything south of the Carson River, and then up along the about midway up the hillside of the foothills there. We're kind of jumping to the punchline here. Same methodology we used, coming up with the 100-year 24-hour storms. You can see that how the water moves through by depth, where on the left-hand side is the El Dorado drainage area, where it comes through, goes past like the very bottom, where the old dam was at. So you can see where it's piling up in red just outside of the drainage basin delineation limits of our study area. And then how that falls along the existing channel and then gets into the Cinder Lake pit. So that big red orb there is basically the pit's what was that, your pond, the settlement pond for their processing. So basically kind of indicates that fills it out. And then you can see how it also passes through the Ranchos area and past the airport. A lot of it's following the natural drainage channels, but then when it gets past Eden Valley Road, you can see where it just kind of hits that flat area and just kind of spreads out and then tries to find back into the path of the drainage channel that kind of runs at a 1 o'clock direction to get back up to the Carson River. And then here shows where the discharge is at in 3 feet per second.
Yippee.
Same process to look at what are the necessary stormwater improvements. Use the same criteria for looking at pedestrian risks, vehicle risks, building risks. So here we saw where the kind of identified for high, moderate risks are for pedestrian crossings, or you can just be out in the backyard. You can see where most of it is the drainage is kind of staying within natural drainage areas or within detention ponds. But you can see that in areas where it gets really flat and spreading out in kind of Ranchos area, where the runoff gets has a hazard to small children. And here we looked at where the risks are to vehicles for crossing those areas on roadways where there's going to be water on the road. Then here it's showing where there's hazards to buildings. They apologize for the scale. You see your house is a red square. They have water at your threshold, but it's a lot of it's going to be in the Ranchos area. There are some areas within around the golf course that were identified in this model. And this kind of shows the building assessment we're getting, or building inundation assessment, kind of zooming into the Ranchos area where we saw that there were quite a few homes. But historically, I think most of you guys know who are from the Ranchos know that that does occur during the large storm events where you've had that flooding. A lot of it starts picking up at the intersection of Sutro and Dayton Valley Road. And then ran the FEMA ACES model to find out, what quantify those costs. And again, it's the 100-year 24-hour storm event is the most costly. This one ended up being about $7.65 million. You recall with the North Valley was about twice that. I think it's just because the density on the north side and there's more commercial and industrial properties on that side versus on the South Valley. And you can kind of see how it's broken in the residential takes up, almost 80-90% of the cost. So then what is the mitigation to take care of that? Well, we looked at, could we do it by basin or could we try and collect it? But the way that runoff is coming off that hillside, it almost is divided into two. A big runoff is going down the El Dorado Canyon, which is kind of a well-defined, kind of holds the water in place. There's really no residential development. Cinder Light has already kind of made it in their facility. They kind of got it set up so they can get that water past there. They're used to that occurring. But on the residential area, what was decided to be the most bang for your buck would be kind of creating almost like a net or a fence to be able to catch the runoff that is coming off of all those tributaries off the hillside by creating a single channel with sedimentation detention basins at key drainage areas before they get to that channel. They kind of slow the water down and they get in the channel and take it all the way out to the Carson River. And that way it mitigates all of that flooding that's occurring within all the development areas, the ranchos, et cetera. So this kind of shows that there are a total of 6 basins along that channel. And then alignment, I'll go back just really quick, sorry. We also looked at knowing the kind of master plan for that potential bypass road, which is going to be part of this, the next portion of this conversation about the bridge. We, again, this kind of planning level, we assume that sometime there may be this road that goes in. So we try to kind of follow along that roadway so that when they build the road, they can be building the channel. So at least try and create some economy by creating 2 projects in one to make it more cost effective. So that was kind of a little bit of the reasoning why we chose that alignment. So then we looked at, okay, well, how are we going to do this? What's it going to cost? So we looked at kind of 2 different storms. Like we looked at a 25-year storm or a 100-year storm. What would be the cost to be able to collect that and channel that runoff to the river? So if we're just designing for a 25-year storm event, it would be $31 million. For a 100-year storm event, it would be 44. What we did is we looked at, okay, what if we phase the construction of this so that we kind of take the time to collect the money and invest in the design and kind of take it one step at a time. Unfortunately, you have to start at the discharge. You have to start the river and then work backwards for collecting your flow. So it's not until you get to phase, the yellow phase 3 or 4, where you're really starting to collect some of that, the runoff from the hillside. So, by then you've invested what, like $15 million in a collection system. But the next phase is up to phase 9. That's where we're getting a lot of bang for your buck, because that's where you're collecting a lot of those larger runoffs to take it on out to the river, and then mitigate all that flooding that's occurring to the north of the area. Now, obviously, there's runoff that's occurring past that, but it is like a fraction of what's coming off the hillside.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
any questions?
let's start, we'll start with the board and then we'll move to the audience, if that's okay. And the first question I have is, I didn't write the numbers down. What was, for both of the 100-year plans, what is the total cost of the project and how much would be, what was the property, what was the value of the property to be protected? I mean, there was,
Yeah.
so the 100-year on that one was,
Yeah, so this is the cost of the improvements is $44 million.
how old are these numbers?
These are from
2000.
2000.
2018. So
So they're dated, very dated.
Wow. Yeah, 30%. I think when they finalize this, I'd say about 19.
Now, if they're 6 months old, they're very dated at this point.
Correct. So that's for the one, and then I jump right.
Yeah.
I want to know the capital costs.
Yeah, so the,
Okay, so let me go back.
I'll just make, it seems like there's a lot of money going in, there's not as much bang for your buck, you're not, it's like you're spending 5 times as much to protect, very, very limited amount. And, based on a 100-year event, so the costs far outweigh what's being protected. I'm just wondering if there's another way to do that.
Yeah,
That's my first question. I mean, does it really make sense to spend, $70 million on a project? It's only going to protect $15 million in property.
right.
Well, the question I'm saying,
Ma'am,
Craig,
Yeah, this is a discussion here.
no,
We're
I
asking
have
him.
a question for you,
Okay,
you know,
we're not,
because you handed
Ma'am,
out.
we're not
building
on audience
permits, it shouldn't stop.
stop. We're not on audience questions yet. Please hold your questions until we're done, and then we will move it to the audience, okay? That's all I'm asking. You can ask
This
any
had nothing
question.
to do with it, you saying basically, people should have the property destroyed
Ma'am,
and have their
ma'am,
insurance
That's not
pay
what I
for it.
said. I asked him a question. I'm trying to get the value out of this for the entire citizenry. Okay, that is my job, is to evaluate the project, the cost, and to make sure it makes sense for everybody. And my question was directed at him.
So you just said that's too expensive.
Mr. Chair, and they,
Please.
so for those of you who have not participated in the open meeting and the state of Nevada, there are some minor rules we have in place for record keeping purposes, because this whole meeting is being recorded, minutes will be kept. So one, you can't speak to anybody but the board when you're under public participation, okay? Number two, you can't speak until you've been asked to identify yourself, so we have your name for the record. The board will ask the presenter questions, make comment, have dialogue back and forth. Then at that point in time, the board will turn it over to the community to have public participation, which you'll be able to allow to ask questions. In most normal public participation, you make your comment for or against something, and it's limited to that. But because this is more of a workshop mindset, even though it's not a workshop, we're gonna make decisions tonight. We'll have you ask questions, and so we can hopefully satisfactorily answer your questions. You may not like our answers, but at least we've answered your question, okay? So it could be a very controversial issue very quickly, right? I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm hearing something completely different from you, basically just from the perspective of what's return on investment from tax dollar to tax dollar. So let's keep this thing calm, let the board ask their questions, and we'll throw over to the public, and we'll answer the questions, and we'll go back to the board to seek what they want to do as far as giving us direction.
Thank you.
I do want to remind the board, tonight is to approve the drainage master plans. The board has already accepted the master plans in a prior board meeting a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. By accepted means that, yeah, we received them, yeah, we looked at them, but we've taken no action. That's why we're here tonight, because we did not approve them at that time.
Got it. So basically, this says my question, David, back to you, is are there any other options, I guess, that would protect the property and would be a more cost effective, I guess is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so I guess I'd say yes and no. And one is that there's been so much development that's occurred that the horses are out of the stable.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to kind of catch up and figure out, okay, what are the investments now we need to make to get things to the larger drainage areas. Because you're approving subdivisions here and there, it's kind of what's called a wildcat type of a development without kind of some master plan. But now I think you're at a point where now you're going to have that opportunity.
We're dealing with the sons of our forefathers is what we're dealing with.
Somewhat, yeah, right. So, but with the cost for that $15 million, it's like, that would be the cost they estimate during that 100-year storm event. But that doesn't mean that it won't happen again for another 100 years.
Yeah.
You
Right,
go back to
understand,
back to
yeah.
back. So, by investing at the $6 million, you're kind of creating that infrastructure to handle the 100-year storm events, and 25-year storm events, et cetera.
Thank you. Okay. Rob.
Thank you, Chairman Gray. I understand. I was fortunate to have a couple tours of some of the residential areas here in Dayton on the south, drainage concerns. And I get what you're saying about starting from the river and working uphill. I do understand that. However, it seems to me like some retention ponds up the way, up into the basin, there could be some smaller ticket items. Because if we're waiting till phase 9 to get the big bang for our buck, the majority of us are gonna be dead. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, so I guess, did they, when the engineers came in and did this, did they offer up some short-term solutions such as retention ponds?
Not that I recall, but I'm a civil engineer as well. When I look at this, what's shown in the blue, the drainage basins, those could be built first to serve as a retention of the runoff from those areas, and then slow the flows down, drop the sediment, and then let it continue on. And maybe with the control of that, you could kind of slow down that flow, so it's not as big of a hit further down. And then as a road, or you put in a road, or you put in the channel, they can start kind of collecting that and diverting it all to the river rather than let it just follow its natural path. So there could be a step we can take to soften that.
So if I may, if you look up at the map of this picture, there's already retention or detention in place in portions of the project already that need to be cleaned up. So that's one of the short-term things we could do to get the deep dark blue, big white area there is one example. In 2015, 2017, and that's where we in 86, 97, 05. That's where it all came off of there. The difficulty that we have is we don't own that. It's private property. So we did do some work after the 17 event, Dustin?
Yes.
After the 17 event, we
That was
met
a
with
fun
the-
event.
Huh?
And that was a fun event.
Yeah. We met with the property owner. They gave us permission. We went in and did a ton of work to clean some of that out. The problem is once you have a significant rainstorm, it doesn't even have to be a flood event, just a significant rainstorm, those areas fill back in with silt very quickly. And I'm not here to cause another controversy, but we have a large number of people who like to ride their ATVs out there. They destroy our basins very quickly without even realizing that that's what they're doing. They're just up there playing and having a good time. But there's a challenge with keeping those maintained to take that water. So that's part of the difficulty of it. But we do have things in place that, yes, we can do stopgap measures until we band-aid it along until we get the entire thing built. Part of the reason why we're asking tonight for authorization to move forward is the majority of the pre-engineering is done. We can apply for EPA grants to start working on these projects and to start building the infrastructure. It won't pay for the whole thing all at one time, but it gives us the opportunity to keep moving forward, either EPA or mitigation grants through FEMA. So that's why we're asking now, because we have the pre-engineering done. There's been more money put in by Washington into both EPA and mitigation dollars. So we're trying to get competitive with the rest of the state and be able to get funding to put those things in place.
So this basically provides justification for us to implement it.
I'm sure that question was come up next, was where's the money gonna come from, so.
That was my question. You just answered it.
Bank sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to piggyback on Commissioner Jacobson's point.
especially on the south end. Yeah, I understand that you start at the river, but what can be done at the El Dorado Canyon end, because that's where most of the water is coming in. Yeah, did when you're doing the study, was that looked at?
Yeah, so on the El Dorado Canyon, because there were no residential areas of risk, and it's within that very defined area, and it's not jumping its banks, then we almost, in our improvements, we're not even touching El Dorado. We're catching everything to the east of it, that's coming down and kind of moving off to the east, that's hitting the airport area, the industrial park, and the residential.
So go back to that one slide that had the phases on there.
Yeah.
Because El Dorado
Yeah.
shoots directly into the.
Right, because it comes down. So what I'm curious about, because this is where a lot of the runoff comes into, is down here in this area.
Right.
So did the study look at doing something in that in the interim until we can get this built? To give some protection to these folks down here?
Yeah, they, yes, they did. So we looked at, everything we do is industrial park, we try to catch that and then put it over to El Dorado. But it was going across, you had to pencil out for cost and all the necessary improvements we have to make to the El Dorado Canyon itself. It just, what I recall from JE4 looking at the other options, that it didn't make much sense. That most of the flows were hitting that orange and yellow area. Yeah, there you go. So the last two basin, the farthest upstream, are capturing that one drainage area that's going through the industrial, just before the industrial park. Because again, we kind of identified BLM, and doing anything on BLM takes 6 years.
Well, now you brought that up. And this is probably a question you can't answer. But is there any way we can make BLM pay for some of this, since it's their property or their land that the water's running off of?
Yeah. Probably no. But you guys are in the process of going through the land still. Obtaining that BLM land.
So we'll still pay
So
for it.
that you can. Yeah, exactly, yeah. You'll pay for it, yes.
Commissioner Ogden.
Basically answered the question I had, what can we do to mitigate the problems before we worry about starting at the river? Having been stationed up in Rapid City, South Dakota in 1973, which was 10 months after a flood. My concern at that point, when I moved there, was that 273 people got killed at 2 to 6 o'clock in the morning when the flood came. So I honestly think that we need to do something to stop basically the headwater up there before it takes us out.
Yeah, I do have one more question if you guys are done. Speaking of liability, and you hit on it with BLM, and it just reminded me, my other question was, what responsibility on the north side does Story County have on this? Since the waters originate on their flood, on their property.
So I will tell you that we've had conversations with Mr. Osborne and others of Story County. Just a little humorous note, after the flood 2017, then Commissioner McBride sent me a bill.
So I remember.
He wanted his dirt back for the tax money. But Story County is willing to work with us in costs as far as building the infrastructure to address the issue. They recognize that, part of that is their issue. What they do on their side to reduce the impact to their constituents may cause us greater impact on our side. So we're working together to address those issues, because they have some very big concerns in Mark Plain on their side as well. And we're just talking about the Lyon County side. Story County is also wanting to sit down once we have this done, and we'll put together how we make that work and what that looks like. But they're willing to come to the table and help out with that.
Okay, and so you guys both gone where I was trying to go earlier is we're getting, the more we can bring in outside dollars, the more bang for the buck that we can get to protect our residents' property at a lower expense to all of our residents.
Right.
So.
And I would think also teaming with Story County to make it a fair justification works in your favor too, for both of you.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize there is housing development on this side that, belongs to Story County and that, they're subject to it as well. So, anybody else on the board have any questions? Okay, so at this time, we're going to open it up to the public for questions. And if you could step right up here and sign in and then state your name for the record.
My name's Mike Starkey. If you would print these for us.
Yeah, sir, can you address it to everybody so everybody can hear? Can we keep the chat?
For
to
this
a minimum?
gentleman, but looking at you. Your data was from 2017 and 18, 4 and 5 years old. Correct, the LiDAR and everything. So there's been a lot of development. Was it adjusted for the additional impermeable surfaces that would create additional runoff?
No.
Okay. You're talking about getting money and you're talking about a project of $60 or $70 million versus 15 to save, but aren't you looking at federal money at like
That's-
10%?
That's where I was going with it, was trying to bring it in more to reduce the cost here
Yeah,
for our,
that's what I thought I heard. Thank you. One last thing real quick is thank you all for coming here to us instead of all of us having to go clear the areas. That's it
thanks, sir.
on this one.
See you next week.
No, I think he means he's gonna see us in about 10 minutes.
My name is Jeanette Peck, 276 La Costa Avenue in Dayton. Thank you for coming. I really do appreciate that. I'm a civil engineer and I'm concerned, can you do the facing one, put the facing one up? Yeah, it almost looks to me like you're going to be building a dry channel for a long time. How much water would you capture in phase one? I think,
Yeah, phase one, not a lot, unfortunately. It's kind of, you almost, we're building. Yeah, it's kind of.
I think it's going to be very unpopular.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if one of the other plans to pick up more water in the Ranchos area, because you're spending a tremendous amount of money and you're not gonna have any water in that channel. So I think it needs to be, honestly, thinks it needs to be looked at a couple of the other alternatives that you have and report how much water will be in the phases. So that's basic. And I also wanted to know how this is being coordinated with FEMA. Will they change their maps? Are they, I mean, how are you?
Right. So with FEMA, their flood zone is along the river. Everything that's basically
Okay.
coming off the hillside is now within a floodplain. But then one of the other options that they look at is trying to capture, creating that drainage going along Sutro, which is basically trying to go through private property, that'd be Tom Miner's ranch, to go that route. But what we were trying to do is like, what is going to be the most bang for the buck? Because we do have several drainages that are coming from that southeast towards the ranchos. So we're trying to capture that and realizing, the first two stages of this project is really kind of creating that spine. And then all the collection is going to happen after that phase 3. You kind of had to start somewhere, or where we started earlier, it's like, again, like we can capture, but it has to have somewhere to go.
Well, have you looked at possibly phasing the lower phases so that you would build part of the channel? Just keep, like you do a bridge, you use part of it and then maybe add on later. I don't think that's true. So that's my.
Well, what I would add is that with this area drainage master plan, we're kind of looking at just like a 10% level.
Yeah.
So once this is approved and money comes in, there's gonna be more analysis that's gonna go in to really fine tune what that route is. So this isn't really locked in what we've shown here, but this was at the time, looked like it was the best option with all the other factors we had, so.
Well, I see your thoughts, but somehow you've got to build something that fills with water.
So something else to consider though is even if you were to take the Sutro option, right, you would still have to start down at the river and build your way up. So you would still end up with a dry section for a while. And you would then also have to build the other drainage infrastructure at a later date.
Well,
or
you
at the
could,
same time.
but you could build half a channel farther and get more water, and then once, see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So why is the
What's your
timeline,
name? What's your name, sir?
Gary Savage, right there?
Oh,
All right. You're welcome. I agree with you. I mean, you've got phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How long do you estimate each phase is gonna take? Which side are you gonna start first? Nobody in this room is gonna be alive except him probably, by the time you even, I mean, how long do you think each phase is gonna take? Which side would you start first?
You mean like what side of the Ranchos or?
No, which side, Rancho side or 6 Mile side? And would they be simultaneously? And how long will each phase take?
Yeah, so
We're
the
talking
decision of
years, right?
priorities, correct. Yeah.
20?
Depends on the flow of money.
So,
Yeah.
so let me make an attempt at addressing the timeline question, the money question, and the priority question. So you're looking at dollars and cents only. The north end of, the north side of the Carson River has the potential for more dollar damage. You're looking at impact to life, you're looking at the south side. So our thought process is once we have the board's approval and they've adopted the plans, now we have the avenue to begin going out and seeking funding, not only from federal government, but working with the development community who's already built. We have some commitment from those folks, those who want to build. So we can start taking a look at how we finance this thing and we start moving forward. The priority from my perspective in the last, I've been here since 1985. So I've lived through a number of floods in Dayton Valley and Mason Valley. And generally speaking, when Dayton's flooding, Mason Valley's flooding. So we've had that experience, so we know what it looks like. And this side of the river is impacted, homes are impacted more than that side of the river. Businesses are impacted on that side. So I can't speak for the board, but my recommendation would be we start on the south side. And as we look at what we can actually fund and what dollars are out there to provide us that funding, will dictate how many phases we do at a time. If I can get $15 million, I can do phase 1 through 3 in the first year.
Okay, but now realistically, what are we looking at time wise? 10, 15?
I don't know until I have somebody what the federal funding looks like and what's out there for us to go after.
What I can say is if we don't start, then it's gonna take a lot longer.
One thing we gotta think of on this side too, right now, we got one bridge. We got all the schools out here, and if that floods out, I mean, it's back to evacuation time, so.
So if I could, if you are going to speak, if you could line up behind where you sign in, so we know how many speakers we've got.
So anyway, first off, I'll talk about the financial plan with you guys. Okay. And it's gonna work, you say your prices for 2028. So we gotta get it going, because they fast. So your price is gonna go up probably 10 million. So that's kind of, I just want to put that out there. And I'm trying to figure out where Lyon County did some at the end of Cedar Road where they put a buffer in there to try to move the water down to another detention pond. And I don't know what happened. So plus I'd like to see a plan where, how's this water gonna get down to the river? Well, it doesn't show anything on the map. Is there a pipeline or?
No, that right there, that's the channel.
That's the channel.
You see detention basins and detention basins, and then that flows all the way down the river. The water
That's where it dumps into the river.
So the water's coming down this way from the mountains, right? And then it dumps it, this would be the channel here in the different phases. So it'll flow into there and then flow into the river.
So it's gonna go up.
No, it's not gonna go, up, it's going down. So that these are the mountains up here.
Right.
And then you're at a higher elevation over here. So it's gonna go down and then end.
I don't know, I live on Sutra Road and it gets flooded. So I'm in the low spot.
I'll turn that over to these guys that, I mean, it's.
I'm just gonna tell you the truth, I can flood it. So,
Yeah, so if you see, that's what,
because the mountain's above me. I'm not gonna dispute geography.
yeah, so this, maybe this, so you can see where you're off of Sutro.
Yeah.
So-
Sutra Road and Dean Valley Road.
Yeah, so right there is where it shows flooding. But with these improvements here, we're gonna be able to capture all of that runoff so that it doesn't get past this fence line and getting into this channel that then flows downhill to the river.
So it's gonna flow all the way from the pit, all the way down.
Yep, it's gonna be catching all the, right, we're trying
all
to
the way
capture.
down Cobalt and out to the river.
Because right now, the natural drainage channel falls along through here.
Right.
And through here. But because the development and all what's planned through here, we're trying to mitigate.
Can you guys speak up so the whole audience can hear?
No, I'm just trying to take.
Yeah, I know, but they can't hear you back there. Now,
Sorry.
we're getting other conversations, so it's going to drown out.
Because it's kind of, it goes uphill as you go up towards Como Lane. This is gonna be deep pipeline.
No, it's all gravity. You may be having a high point right here, but by swinging out a little bit further to the east, by gravity, we're gonna allow it to get on to the river.
Okay. I don't know, but I don't think it's gonna work, but.
Okay, sir.
My name is Bob Scholes, I live at 305 Yager Court. I also am a retired civil engineer. First thing, I want to compliment you on your presentation. I'm impressed. That's not easy to do. Having done it a few times myself. I think this solves the problem. The major drainage coming down that goes into the industrial and the airport and on down. The preponderance of that water, if you look at the map, is coming, off the mountains. But we don't get to divert it till we get in phase 9.
The catching
But
that.
we got a channel in El Dorado that's only half a mile away. On an interim basis, it seems to me that you can divert the preponderance of that water, put it back in the river, and then pick it up later.
That was there was a third option that had been looked at by trying to re-establish the natural drainage channel going through the ranchos, but because of all the private property and the improvements that have occurred and how that natural drainage channel has been augmented over the last 50 years, it was going to be almost too expensive to try and basically take out houses, easements from properties. And so that,
houses.
I'm talking about the ranchos. I'm sorry, you're talking about.
I'm talking about coming out into the industrial area.
Oh,
If you look, we have a couple of retention basins down here in phase 9.
right.
You take that water on an interim basis, put it in the channel,
The El Dorado.
assuming that the going down to the borrow pit has capacity. While you were building this, you diverted the preponderance of that,
Yeah.
relieve a lot of flooding on an interim basis. Just a thought.
No, it's a-
Can we have your business card, please, sir?
Guys retired.
What's your number?
I'll leave my business card with you.
You won't tell me. Mine was 1795. I've been registered since 16.
Oh, my engineering number.
Yeah. Don't you remember?
Yeah, I'm under a 2000.
Guys, we can talk about that on a break. Yeah.
Shame on you not knowing that.
I know.
Yeah. Sonia Abbott, 135 Comstock. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm real familiar with all the things that have happened up in Tempe.
I'm sure no one in this room can answer this question correctly, even Jeff here. Why the hell hasn't something been done sooner? And those mud puddles that you call reservoirs along Dayton Valley are disgusting. This is stuck on stupid.
My name's Tim Peter. Want to make a couple comments. That green line shown up there, the drainage is up in the foothills. It's above the elevation of the ranchos and stuff, so it will take the water away if they ever get finished. You know, you eliminate all that blue that's going through it now, and it'll take it above us. The lady had a good point. We may not get the 100-year flood for the next 20 years. Is it possible to do some of this ditching and take off the floods we've been getting about every 5-10 years and help us a lot without, you know, and then come back and deepen them up or something? It's not raining all the time. It's not flooded all the time. There'll be plenty of time to come and make those ditches deeper if we could stop some of it right now. There are also several other alternatives in the proposed, alternate 1A, 3, and so forth. The board, that I understand it, is accepting the report as it's written. I've read the report, which also includes a lot of other alternatives they could do. This is not the only one. This is the one I personally prefer because it tends to make it more logical to put the road to the bridge down that long in the same path. But there's another possibility is there are a lot of owners, private lands. I'm not in the best place to do it, but a lot of those people might be willing to let you put a ditch, you know, without charging a lot or something to do that. They might even take their backhoes and help do some of the ditching and stuff, because the water only floods about every 5 to 10 years. The rest of the time it's perfectly good to use for your land.
Can you give us a description of what those now, how deep and wide those channels would be?
Yeah, so those, the drainage channel that we have for the 100-year storm event, I believe, was gonna be 40 feet wide.
102 feet wide at the top, tapering down to 50 feet wide at the bottom, 6.5 feet.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. All right, thank you.
Can we hire him?
Yeah, that's a substantial channel.
My name is Ingrid White. I live out there in that area, you know, where William Road is. And I would like to know from you, you know, first of all, how big are these retention ponds, you know, those yellow little things? How big, you know, are they supposed to be? And also what they're made of? Is this just big dirt, or are they basically reinforced with concrete? So that, you know, it doesn't wash away and then they break like that, what we have right now, that soil they pushed up there, you know, in the Sutra area, you know, roads, Dayton Valley Sutra area, you know, if it's a real hard rain, the silt basically is gonna be gone in an hour. Because, you know, it's basically liquefies, so to speak, you know, that's number one. And number two, the green line going all the way up there, you know, from, I saw a map piece, this is actually Bullion Road right now. So if you have this huge channel, you know, is that gonna be covered? And is it underneath the road, or is it instead of the road? How is this done? Because that takes away the access to the property owners, you know, who live there.
Right. So I'll answer the first question about the detention ponds. I couldn't tell you right now what those sizes were, but again, what we have here is kind of a very preliminary design. So when we get into funding, we actually get into designing them, we'll be looking at sizing them for detention for the 100-year storm events, figure out how much sediment is going to be coming in, so you create an extra room for that, allowing that sediment to drop, and then with the control structure to allow the stormwater to be kind of metered out into the channel and then head on down to the river. So, and then it's also going to be set up to where probably put in isolated kind of cells within those detention basins so that you can capture the sediment in one cell, so that the roads department can come in with backhoes and front end loaders to clean that material out to get that volume back for the next storm event to occur.
Because
So
especially on the upper end where Dayton Valley Road and Bullion meets, you probably need a lot of dynamite to get it out, because there's granite rock in there, you know. only do with dynamite.
Right.
And then there's another question what I have at the end of it, when it goes back into the river, where there's blue blob in there, which is a floodplain. This is exactly, where Chavez Road is, and that's why they want to put the bridge. Doesn't that contradict it? Because, we need to build the bridge on the slopes, because this is all going to be flooded out.
So this layout was getting almost kind of drawn with a Sharpie, in the sense that really didn't go through to figure out exactly what that alignment was. We're going to be avoiding it. It was more of the concept, and then building upon what the cost would be on that concept. Really, the details in the alignment won't be finalized until we get the funding and we're really going to dive into the details. Because there's going to be easements, rights of way that may be acquired. The detail, that's where the devil's at.
Right.
So if all it is kind of an alignment saying this is the direction we think makes the most sense. And then we'll fine tune that.
All right, thank you very much.
Hey, guys, thanks for being here tonight. It is appreciated. Russ Harry here today. Questions. Number one, who's going to be responsible for cleaning? Kind of brought it up that they filled up, whether the kids are out there playing, every time the wind blows, doesn't matter. In between storms, who's going to be responsible for that? Whose dime is that?
Yours.
Good answer.
Whether we're using local tax dollars, state tax dollars, or federal tax dollars, it's tax dollars.
But is there a specific, will there be a specific group that's keeping that clean, waiting?
So
for
there's,
the rain?
there are a number of ways of looking at or addressing the maintenance. And so we've looked at a couple of things. One, I currently am using road department dollars to do a lot of the drainage work because the drainage we're working on affect roads. But when they don't affect roads, I can't use those road dollars. In some jurisdictions, Briquetta's crew, because it's storm drainage, utilities are responsible for storm drainage. Well, I don't know that he has the people. No, has the people. So there's a couple ways of looking at how we manage this in the future. Once we start getting things built, how we come up with a maintenance schedule is, do we hire somebody to be the storm maintenance director who manages contracts, keep them maintained on a daily basis or regular basis? Or do we hire that person and then hire subsequent staff to do that? Don't have an answer to that yet, because I don't know what the costs are.
It's on a priority level, though, but it would be high, because when the recession hit, I mean, where's the priority? Is it gonna remain up there? Is it gonna remain high? We're gonna have to funnel those dollars, because it is, to what you said just a few minutes ago, it is about saving lives on this side, correct?
The county has invested, using federal dollars, a great deal of money to come up with what we've got here today. Okay? If we do nothing, we have a huge liability. It's like, not like we can say, we didn't know. Okay, so it's got to stay on a high priority. This board is obviously supporting what we're doing. It's up to you folks as citizens, as things change 10 years down the road and we have new board members, just keep on those individual commissioners. Somebody asked why we haven't taken care of this before. Because everybody that was in this room 10 years ago or 20 years ago with Bob Mills, not this room, but another room like this, discussing flooding, by God, you need to do something. And so when Bob went out to say, okay, can we have your 20 acres on the river so we can dump the water there? No. And then it went away. We went into a drought. We didn't have any rain, and then it flooded again. And then we said, by God, when are you gonna do something? And then it rain went away, we had another drought, didn't rain for another 5 or 6 years. That's why we became apathetic. It's really hard to talk about doing something about storm drainage when it's 100 degrees outside and there's weeds growing in the channels we already have, right? So that, yes, it has to be a priority, but it's up to you folks as citizens to keep whoever's sitting on the board, keep them motivated and make sure it stays at the priorities.
So just the second half of that question is, you said that on the north side it's property and on the south side it's about life. Are you going to continue to allow the building to go on and put those lives in harm's way until this is squared away?
Well, there's a number of debates you can have about that issue, and I don't want to get in that discussion tonight because we spent all night there. The short answer is, our hands are tied to a certain extent with people and their property and their property rights. Okay? So the board has control over some growth. If somebody wants to come in and do a master plan amendment, the board can say no, just for the sake of saying no. Okay? But short of that, if they're not letting people do things with their property they want to do, it's a taking. They're taking that person's right to use their property away from them without any real apparent reason. We can say flooding and loss of life, but so far that hasn't happened. And the courts are gonna look at it, especially the courts right now in Nevada. Okay? So we have to be very careful with what we say about growth, what we do about growth. You know, if you look back at 1973, when NDEP said you got to put a sewer system. That changed Dayton forever. And then we complained about the roads because they were unsafe. They put a 4-lane in. That changes even more forever, right? So the short answer is, I'll give you the district attorney answer. It depends.
So I want to dovetail with something Jeff said here a minute ago too about the board. You do have a board here that wants to do something about it. I came on the board, Jeff, remember I came on in January 2017. What happened was it the following week, we had a declaration of emergency. There was flooding going on. So I was out there tromping around in the mud. You know, I think some of my comments were misunderstood earlier about that. And, you know, but I mean, we were out in the Sutro area, we're out on this side of the area. And I also sit on the Carson Water Subconservancy, which, by the way, we got money to help fund the study from. So I've been very active in that, but there is a board here that wants to do something and address this because it hasn't been done in the past. And we've looked at things, you know, like trying to slow down the development where we could. Like Jeff said, it's a taking. I mean, we have a constitution in the state, you know, in this country and in the state that allows people to develop their property. So there's very limited things that we can do, but we're trying to do that. And that's why we keep bringing this issue back so we can keep forging down that path. And yeah, it may not ever happen in our lifetimes, but if we can start chipping away at it and get it going, we'll, you know, we'll address that. And so we don't have the flooding issues anymore because they are catastrophic. They destroy people's lives and they may take lives, and we don't want to see that.
So the board in front of me, who's for life or who's for building, so that we know where you folks stand. I mean, what side are you guys gonna flop out on? We need to know.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I mean,
It's
of
a
course, it's
loaded
always gonna,
scenario,
of course, it's always gonna be.
If I'm living in Mark Twain, I can make it. If I'm living,
You got a point.
what's that apartment complex over there on the north side? Where we have the water running right through the apartment.
Oh, yeah, the,
Okay. So it's all in the eyes of the beholder, right? We'll make decisions once we have an idea of what actual costs are gonna be and where funding is, based upon, can we do it or not with the funding that we have available? My view is, right now, as the emergency manager, I want to see something done on the south side because of the bridge issue. If I have to evacuate because of flooding and now there's water over the bridge. See, I remember 1986, I was the last guy to drive over the bridge in weeks. And it was going away when I was going over it. I was in a squad car. Okay, so I remember not having a bridge between Yerington and the rest of the county for 6 months until they put up a Bailey Bridge and we finally got a new bridge built. So I know that is one of our key priorities, is making sure that Central Line Fire is one, has access to get in here, because our first stations are all on that side of the river. Right, making sure the sheriff's office get over here. So from my perspective, this area is the bigger priority. I'm hoping that we can be able, with Story County being on the north side and us being on the south side, we can partner in grant sharing. So we're doing stuff on both sides at the same time, taking care of both needs. So I don't know that yet until when we can go back to the feds and say, okay, here's our plan. We've got it approved. We need funding. What can you do for us?
and Russ, you know, and right, I guess what I was trying to say is, that's not a, you know, a life or, you know, because I mean, like Jeff said, the water was flowing right through those apartments over there. You know, we don't know where the life event's gonna happen. We don't know where the property event's gonna happen. We kind of have an idea, but you don't know until it's actually happening. So we're trying to figure out where the best bang for the buck is to move that direction, which is why this board's also been pushing about, let's start making some decisions about the bridge. So that'll help alleviate some of it. And, they're painful discussions, and I gotta give kudos to this board. We've not shied away from the painful discussions. And it has not made a lot of people happy, but, their discussions have to be had. So it's just not as simple as, it's not black or white. Sorry, not what you wanted to hear, I know, but.
Fair enough. Thanks.
The record, Sean Keating, I'm a resident up on the north side of where this plan takes effect. I want to thank you guys for coming down. It's kind of hard to get in front of a big crowd that really wants to hear answers that you don't have answers for. I mean, you know the problem and you're trying to develop the answers. One of the things I wanted to talk about is really sheer costs. The county manager alluded to, there's developers out there that would put into an account or give the county access to funds to mitigate a lot of those plans that have to lead up to this big project to form. My point would be that you have this study in place, that the board develops a pro share costing. So when lots are created in this area based off the stormwater retention issue that's been addressed, that the tax base is not burdened with that money in a whole park. And I think that's what you guys are trying to do. But that brings up a whole new equation, something this board has never done before, is look at the impacts and come up with a cost share approach to this. And that is a realistic point that is used not just in Dayton Valley or Lyon County, throughout northern Nevada and probably the state and probably the country as well. So I asked you to look at that so that you can develop some of those intermediate funds and bank them so that you have access to, so you don't have to go to Story County or to a grant to get a study like this done. So that's my comment.
Jeff, you catch up? Thanks, Sean.
I do want to make one point, Mr. Chair, that just to remind the audience and the board, I have no problem answering the questions you have, but the whole focus tonight is to get the plan approved. There's many questions we can't answer until we go to the next step. I can't go to the next step until the plans are approved.
Got it.
Please, Laura Starkey, 313 Jaeger Court, down over by the airport on the south side of River Cliff. And what you said is exactly what I wanted to say. Everybody's getting sidetracked about little infinite details, and we don't know all the details right now. And what we as a community need is to move forward and allow the board and allow them to adopt a plan so that we can move forward as a community. And this is a plan. Plans change. But if you don't have a plan, then you're going nowhere. And so we have to have that so that we can apply for funding. And that is my main point.
Thank you. Okay, saying no further public.
All
Really?
right, John, you were supposed to be in line.
Yeah, all right, Mr. Gavin. Is there anybody else after Mr. Gavin? All right.
You have a comment on Zoom.
John Gavin.
Who was impacted by the flood?
Yeah, I'm neighbor, I have good neighbors who are impacted even more than me. And, I got a couple pieces of property, just like everyone here probably has pieces of property, they grow property taxes. And I don't have kids in school, but I pay a lot of money in those property taxes for school taxes. I don't complain about that, but I've never paid 1 penny to Lyon County for storm drainage, not a penny. There's no fund that's developed. I don't want more taxes on the one side, but I want the benefits that you guys can help provide. So I think Washoe County has taxes for storm drainage. Carson City has taxes for storm drainage. And I think in the big picture, we ought to be looking at long-term at stuff like that. Who wants taxes? Raise your hand. I don't want any more taxes, but I also want the benefits. So I just keep that in mind. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, to address that, so Mr. Foley, who's couldn't be here tonight, he's on vacation. I don't know if we let him do that, but
Probably the same guy who just got back from vacation.
So we've had a number of conversations. There are a number of ways. The capital portion of this, the building of the infrastructure, is a little, it's a big number, but it's a little simpler to handle, because there are a number of funding opportunities outside of local tax dollars. The concern is the maintenance on a routine basis. So Foley and I have been exploring a number of options that the board will be bringing back to the board at some time when we have a better idea of how we're going to do this to consider. And there's a property tax potential. There's a special assessment district per parcel. There's a Dayton Valley Conservation Districts. Under their statute, there's a fee that you can charge per parcel, but what people don't realize is the Dayton Valley Conservation District goes all the way to Fernley. So we'd have to work with Fernley what that would look like. So we're doing more research from the perspective of making sure we bring to the board is something that's doable and isn't just raising people's ire for the sake of raising people's ire, nothing getting done, right? I mean, I do not want to be the guy that comes in the day and say, okay, we're raising your taxes by 50 cents so we can pay for your storm drainage, and then you get tarred and feathered and drawn back to Arrington. Right, so we're spending a great deal of time looking at those issues so we know what's the best solution. Because I'll be honest with you, property tax 15 years ago, that'd have been the right way to go. But with the abatement and the tax cap in place now, 10 cents gets us nothing. Right, and so there's got to be a different way of looking at that and how we address that. Carson City, Far West, I believe, just did a fee study for them some time ago on their storm drainage.
Yes.
Okay, and so there's all kinds of ways of doing that. One of them is those folks who are paving parking lots and they pay more money. Well, when you're now affecting business, because who has the big parking lots? Businesses, not our driveways. I mean, some of us might have huge driveways, but right. So there's still a lot of things we have to look at before we come back to the board and say, here's a way for us to address costs. We're not trying to hide it. And that's one thing I will say is that, so I've heard over the last couple of days about the agenda, well, you guys are hiding this stuff. We've had these plans on our social media outlets and our website since we put them in place. We have gone out of our way to let people know that we're meeting to discuss these things. We've had people and developers call. We have nothing to hide, right? We're trying to do the best we can do with the money that we have and not charge any additional dollars if we don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. All right, saying no further questions.
Sure, let me check Zoom real quick.
Oh, that's right. We got Zoom going.
We have KW and Rob Heisel.
Oh, no, Rob. No, Rob, sit down. I can't hear him.
Mr. Heisel, you can speak.
Oh, I was going to say, the chairman may want to have KW speak first, but just
Hit the hand up button as he went down.
just for further.
I just wanted the next person then.
Whoever KW is. The Zoom caller KW.
Okay, if KW is unavailable, can I go ahead?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so. I'll wait till Lydia gets back. Everybody clap when she comes back.
You're really bad.
You gotta be lighthearted.
That's the best thing you said all night.
Can you hear me?
KW? So there was one question I think I heard also that I didn't answer, had to do with the impacts of this channel on the Carson River. Maybe like sediment and water quality issues. With the sediment detention basins, is intended to drop the sediment, but the report really didn't go into water quality impacts to the river. However, with part of the permitting process, we're gonna have to address that, answer that with NDP.
Lahat will catch it all.
Yeah.
What they don't catch in a Churchill County will get big.
Okay, I reconnected.
Comments
Can
on
you
the
hear me now?
audience?
My question about the going into the river was
Ma'am,
more.
your name again, just so they can.
Jeanette Peck. I'm was hydraulically, the water has always gone in over in the Ranchos area. If it's all going in there, I think somebody needs to figure out, seems to me it's gonna be a pretty big structure you're gonna have to figure out for there. And the other thing is, if you're doing the bridge project, that could affect the person who they're gonna have to work together.
Absolutely. So where were you discharging guys?
I thought it was for me.
Mr. Chair, KW is back on.
Okay, let's go to KW then. As long as it's not Rob, is it?
Mr. KW, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
There you say.
This is KW. Can you hear me? Hello?
It sounds like we can hear you. but I
KW, you
don't know
there?
if they can.
Might have to stop the screen share.
I did. Well, I'm inclined to go ahead and take a motion in the meantime. So if anybody wants to make a motion at this point, we'll take it. And then if they get the question back up, we'll answer the question before we take action.
Well, I will make a motion for 5A to adopt the North Dayton Valley Area Drainage Master Plan.
Got a motion?
Second.
Okay, do we have any further board discussion? And were we able to get back KW or Raphael for any questions, comments,
So we're
concerns?
trying to figure out why.
Okay, KW's here.
The TVs are frozen.
KW, I can hear you, but I don't know that the board
Is there a
can.
number we could give
Exit.
Chairman Gray? Is there a number we could tell
That's gotta be on the agenda.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
KW to call and put them on speaker?
Can you hear me?
Question for the good old VA, would we be okay to go ahead and take the vote this time then?
Yeah, they're having trouble with the Zoom.
Yeah.
And I give them just a minute to see if they've got it working.
I have a question.
Can you step up here and sign in, please?
I will. So I live on Bolion Road.
State name, please.
Juliet Hanson, 250 Bolion Road. So I see your plan shows a channel going along Bolion Road, and I know that you said it's a Sharpie down the road. I'm assuming that you mean on the other side of Bolion, which is on the BLM side of the road.
Yeah, the east side.
And just to clarify, when you say channel or conveyance, you're talking about the 100-foot,
Large, wide.
like a
open channel.
canal,
Correct.
basically,
Yes.
Okay.
It'd be a rock line,
rock line.
more than likely.
It's already rock.
Lots of rock around.
Yes, it's already rock. Okay. And then in there, I'm assuming nobody wants to hear about the other alternatives. You had 2 other alternatives and then a third one down there as well.
Yeah, so
And then you had 2 alternatives and then the third one is kind of buried in the report a little bit. Is there a reason why you're not interested in that one at all?
the.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry. So not being Jay Fuller who prepared it, I can't quite remember the details of that. On this presentation, because it's a 500-page report, just the south one, I tried to kind of get down to what was recommended alternatives. And I think within the body of the report, they talked about why it wasn't, why they came up with that versus the other ones. The one, I'm sorry, maybe I lost what your question was the one.
Well, there was another alternative. There was a second alternative, a third alternative, and then there was another one lower down where you showed a channel coming through where some of those existing new basins are next to that housing development. Does anybody recall this?
Yeah, there's been multiple discussions on the different options, and this is the one that kind of rose to the top. If I remember right, there were right-of-way issues, private property issues. It just was not the most feasible. Andrew, you can probably touch base on that.
Yeah, this option was picked because it was as limited.
And can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
There were multiple.
Hold on just a second, Rob.
You bet.
There were multiple, I lost my train of thought. Essentially, this was the biggest bang for your buck. It was
So
the way to channel.
the biggest challenge was, but the other options are, the board's gonna have to take eminent domain, take people's property right away from make it work.
And that will add years and a whole lot of costs, many years. And it's, you know, personally, I'm not, I wouldn't support taking somebody's private property, just not gonna happen.
But the options still are.
Yeah. So, all right,
So on Bullion, where you mentioned rights of way, the properties on Bullion do across, you know, through the road, across the road a little bit. Is that what you meant by coordinating with property owners and rights of way?
It would be past that. It would be on Beal and Lynn on that side. South of where
Yeah, I wouldn't think you would
private
put a large
property is.
channel right up against the road. So
Yeah,
you're talking about moving it further out.
Correct. So that'd be really kind of, once we get the green light, we're doing everything that was done back in 2000.
sorry, can we have just one conversation going on, please? I'm getting a lot of.
We're basically gonna revisit a lot of the things that we knew back then and with the information we know now to really kind of fine tune what that alignment is gonna be. So it's not a lot.
All right, KW on
Thank you.
online on Zoom.
Okay, KW here.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Kirk Wesley Stockham. I live in the airport district. Am I coming through?
Yeah, we got you.
I've lived here since 2016, and I had the fortunate ability to photograph two sets of floods, 2017 and 2019. And the big source of water comes right through the Lyon County Utility Yard and the commercial district. The utility yard has a big canal that diverts the water that saves it, but the commercial district is sending water towards us through a big new warehouse project that has built a diversion canal with a cement dam reflector that's going to take the water to a ditch that needs to be dug deeper. And the ditch itself was put there and dug deep by Lyon County many years ago. So if there's one thing that can be started right away is the big flood source for the 5-acre parcels and the golf course community and the air park community is right through that commercial district. And the new warehouse project is blocking major flash flood river channels right now. It's going to divert them into a small ditch, and it's going to be a nightmare when the big flood comes. Is that possible, or how'd that happen?
Yeah, so, so to answer your question about that channel going through that warehouse facility, there are two stormwater facilities on that. One is to convey the runoff that is coming uphill from it, going through, just passing that flow that it always passed through. But the county code requirements is anything that is an additional impervious area or their impact of their lot, they're to provide the detention for what's within their property. So that's what was installed on that facilities, their detention of their increase in runoff, but passing that huge runoff coming off the hillside. So that's what's there. And that goes into the box culvert going underneath the roadway. And then that channel that has silted up. But that's what he's talking about, is that it goes into that channel.
So it's a maintenance issue at this point? Or have you got silt in that channel?
Okay.
Chuck Reno, Far West Engineer, back as the county engineer. Back in September of 18, we redid the drainage standards to mitigate efforts like this, because people would develop, they'd make drainage basins to cover all their excess water. But then they wouldn't maintain them, and then there would be no effect. So in the drainage standards now, they have to do 1.5 times what would have been. And so that new development actually has a bigger basin than what's typically required right now. But it is required by code now, like, or by our drainage guidelines. So it also passes anything that goes through its property. So what the historic stuff is, it just keeps passing it through, but it maintains a basin for its additional road. That helps.
Thank you. All right, do we still have Rob Pizell? Did he want to have a comment?
Yes, can you hear me, Ken?
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize. Evidently, there was something going on. Just wanted to highlight, Jeff covered it briefly. The plan did propose different alternatives. However, all of the alternatives did require conveyance features to go across private property. In particular, one of the possibilities would take the drainage through the ranchos itself. Again, the concern being one property owner could shut the project down if he refused to cooperate. Similar issues came up with the potential to take a detention basin and shed it off towards the El Dorado Canyon. Again, there was some private property between the detention basin, the furthest southwest detention basin, and the El Dorado Canyon. Concern being, again, one property owner could shut that off. The secondary benefit of the proposed alternative or the supported alternative was, again, that roadway system that was approved as part of the 2010 comprehensive master plan. The rough alignment would match that, and in essential, we could kill two birds with one stone. Part of the road construction would require some fill, and the drainage facility and the detention facilities could address that. The other question with regard to the other concern I wanted to express with regard to possibly not starting at the river on the south side and working your way back, installing detention features and some channels that prior to connecting to the Carson River, is that water still has to go somewhere. And the problem with creating intermediate features as opposed to starting from the Carson River and working back on the south side is, are we now just creating a greater impact by storing that water for a little bit and then releasing it once it tops the outflow? So just wanted to cover those. The one thing that I think Jeff did want to make sure, and we want to make sure as your staff, is in order to secure any funding from the federal government, you have to have a plan. And that's what both the north and south area drainage master plans were put forward as. As Jeff pointed out, we can go through FEMA, we can go through several different types of funding mechanisms, but we have to have a plan first, or they won't even listen to you. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boisel. So yeah, and I will say before we take the vote on 5A, staff has done a good job. I mean, this may be the first time some of you guys have seen these or discussed them, but this isn't new. This wasn't decided in a back room or anything like that. They've done an excellent job of providing us several courses of action. And I'm not just saying, here, this is what you guys need to approve. This has been a discussion for how many years now, Jeff? Years. So
We were talking about this in 1985 when I got hired on.
Exactly. So, but this is the farthest we've ever, correct me if I'm wrong, as farthest we've ever made it down the road. So we have a motion and we have a second. There's been no further discussion. So I'm gonna go ahead and call for the vote this time for item 5A. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion 5A passes unanimously. Looking for motion on 5B.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the South Dayton Valley Area Drainage Master Plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a couple seconds. Any further discussion by the board? Any public discussion on item 5B? Anything online?
And that was for option, the first.
It's for the plan.
Yeah, for the plan, yeah. Okay, seeing no further discussion, I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 5B is passed unanimously as well. Thank you, and we are going to take a 10-minute break. Somebody caused me to break this tonight. Maybe a little bit. Hey, we're gonna bring the meeting back to order and back to order and get down to the easy stuff.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Hey, thank you guys for being patient with us tonight. The technical difficulties and everybody's doing a great job. I appreciate it. So we're gonna move on out of 5C now. For possible action, presentation, discussion, and direction to the county manager on the location, supporting road network, and funding for a second bridge in the Dayton area. Mr. County Manager.
Is this TV not connected to those?
It's not, I'm sorry.
No, that's right.
That's the one they use for ESPN.
Well, I know I had a request too, whether or not that would pivot, because people on that side can't see it very well.
I'd say.
As long as you two can see it, we're all good.
Usually take like.
Technology challenge, sorry.
Okay, we'll turn it over to you again.
Jeff Page, Andrew.
Andrew Haskin, Lyon County Community Development Director for the record. So the second part of tonight's discussion is to talk about the second bridge location in Dayton. You know, it's been said many times, it's been brought up that, you know, for various reasons, a second bridge is needed for safety purposes. There's flooding issues, there's fire issues, and so, you know, like, once again, the first step in getting some funding and getting something built is to determine where it's gonna go so that we have a plan to move forward. So just to provide a little bit of history, I'm not looking this, sorry. Just to provide a little bit of history, and this is, I mean, I'm sure these conversations have gone on longer than 2008, but in 2008, there was a study conducted looking at the Cardelli-Sutro option. Cardelli and Sutro and the Shabs options were included in the 2010 master plan as potential locations for the second bridge. There was a study conducted in 2018 that looked at specifically at the Shabs option. Cardelli and Sutro options were removed from the transportation plan in the 2020 master plan update. So there's been several meetings to date on the second bridge in Dayton and where that location will go. And at the February 3rd BOCC meeting, this was on the agenda again, the commissioners requested that staff make a presentation at a later meeting here in Dayton to discuss it so that everybody could have input. So the purpose of today's discussion is really to determine the location of the second bridge, and which will provide a direction for staff, focus county resources on one option, and allow for the identification of potential funding sources. So this map here, I just wanted to point out, this was the 2010 master plan transportation map, and I apologize, it's kind of small, just with the format of it. That's how it had to work. But it shows both the Cardelli-Sutro option and the Shabs option. Kind of hard to tell. I don't know if it would be helpful if I pointed it out, but please. Right here.
So small, you can't find it, can you?
Right there. Yeah, that's that one there is the Cardelli option, and then the Shabs option is the one on the farther east. As I mentioned before, in the 2020 master plan transportation map, the Cardelli option was actually removed, and the Shabs option was left in, as you can see here, that green line following the east. So I'm gonna talk about a little bit about each option, kind of what it would look like and what are some of the challenges really. So first I'm gonna start with the Cardelli-Sutro option. This is the potential alignment of the Cardelli-Sutro option. You can see it would follow Cardelli Road, basically across from the Maverick Station along 50. It would come down, cross the Carson River right where the disc golf course is currently, and then pick up Sutro Street Road on the south side of the river. So the Cardelli-Sutro option would include about a 1,300-foot bridge connecting the south end of the existing Cardelli Road to the north end of the existing Sutro Road. The project would involve obtaining 70 feet of additional right-of-way along Cardelli and 50 feet of additional right-of-way along Sutro. That's really going to be the big challenge with this option if it was picked. The bridge has to be so long because of the floodway that runs through along the Carson River. You don't just have to cross the river, you have to cross the entire floodway, otherwise the bridge would flood when it flooded, and you would have some major issues. It wouldn't serve its purpose. So here's a kind of a design. This was out of the 2008 plan that looked at the Cardelli-Sutro Bridge, and you can see here in this plan the 1,300-foot bridge. Now this plan addressed several other smaller spans, but again, this was the only one that got you through the FEMA floodway. So here's the bridge, and then this area here on the south side and this area here on the north side would be area where fill would have to be brought in to raise that level up enough to meet the bridge. So it's a pretty substantial project. But as I mentioned before, the bridge is not the only part of this project. We would have to take a look at acquiring some more right-of-way. The road would be a major arterial road by definition, which requires 100-foot right-of-way width. That's pretty substantial. Currently along Cardelli, we only have 30 feet of road right-of-way. The top of this map here is, it's kind of hard to tell, but basically where Cardelli hits, I wish this pointer worked up on the screen. This right here, this is Highway 50 here. You can see Cardelli coming down. You can see the 30-foot roadway and public utility easement on this parcel map. Here's the existing Cardelli Road looking south. One thing I want to point out in the picture on the right, you can see that there's a big slope there with houses above it. That's going to be important for a later part of the discussion. But you can also see that it's a very narrow roadway. Going back to the roadway required right-of-way table that's in the master plan, you can see that the smallest roadway that we have listed here is local road, and that requires a 40-foot easement. So this wouldn't technically meet today's standards. The road is older than these standards. The primitive road is not outlined, as far as what a right-of-way width would be, but it would more fall within that. So I put together kind of a rough graphic of what this would look like, basically using the Google Earth feature and their measuring feature on here. And so the width of this is 100 feet. And so you can see this is the northernmost part of Cardelli. This is up against Highway 50 here. So the county would have to acquire all of the right-of-way basically where the road is not currently. The road itself is pretty much exactly 30 feet, so it takes up that entire right-of-way. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. Okay. Moving further south, all of these bars here represent a 100-foot section. And so I went ahead and marked out each of these and took a look at properties that the county would have to acquire as a part of this option. And you can see it's pretty substantial. Something interesting to point out on here is the county actually has a well, the Cardelli well, within that 100 feet that would have to be relocated. So that represents a significant cost, and I'll have David Burketta come up and talk here in a minute when I get to the cost section. Moving further south, again, here are more properties that would have to be acquired. Now, you might wonder why you see on the map, you see some clear stuff, clear property on the left of the map, basically the west side. Well, that's all hill, as I showed a picture before. So even if you were to carve that out and build a retaining wall, it still doesn't give you 100 feet. So you'd still have to take property on the other side as well. So it poses a pretty significant challenge. Also, this, as I mentioned, would go straight through the Dayton Disc Golf Course. Here's a picture of Cardelli at the Dayton Disc Golf Course here. So moving kind of across the river, we actually do have a section of this that is 100-foot right-of-way and public utility easement. The section that goes across the river, basically south of where I just showed you, and it connects to Sutro Street, but it's a very narrow section there. It's not, let me back up. It's not a very long section of the road. So that portion we do have enough right of way. And then here's Sutro Street here. The Sutro Road right now is 45 feet in width. We have a 50-foot right of way. So along Sutro, we would have to acquire an additional 50 feet. And this is just a map showing the entire alignment. And again, I realize nobody can read those numbers, but it shows the 50-foot right of way all the way down. And here's a picture looking north. You can see the hill that the road would kind of come up. This better illustrates all that fill dirt that I was talking about to bring the bridge up to the proper level. That shows why you would need so much. And so then this is Sutro looking south. So I did the same thing that I did for Cardelli on the Sutro side. I picked the left side, the west side of the road this time, just because there were fewer houses that we would have to ultimately purchase and demolish. And so this shows the properties here along Sutro. Once again, the road is 45 feet. We have an additional 5 feet. So this section poses a significant challenge. And here's moving further south along Sutro. You can see the blank sections in there. Well, I guess we don't really need to get into, well, the blank sections in there are actually a part of the minor ranch. So we would need some right there. So I took a look at kind of putting together kind of a rough estimate of what it would cost to purchase those properties. And I used Zillow as the estimate. I realized that's not the greatest estimating tool, but it was what I had in the short amount of time that I had to put together this presentation. And so you can see property values. Those are 3 different pictures there that I just stacked side by side from left to right, showing moving south down Cardelli. And then I did the same thing moving south down Sutro. And so 18 homes would ultimately need to be purchased or acquired through eminent domain and demolished. Based on those Zillow estimates, the cost of that alone would be $10.25 million. Additional rights, that does not include the additional right of way on the minor ranch parcels, just because it's kind of harder to put that value. Zillow didn't have an estimate for just the 100 feet that we would need. So
and that's without legal fees.
This is without legal fees. This is not including the relocation of the well, and then that might be time David come up and talk just a little bit about what that would cost.
Chairman Gray, Commissioner David Burketta, Utilities Director for the record. So the Cardelli wells are 3rd largest producing well in Dayton. And just as a relative comparison, our last well that we drilled, which is down by the wastewater treatment plant, which we drilled about 5 years ago, the total cost of that was in the neighborhood of $5 million. So that's just a relative comparison. Clearly, it's gone up since then. If that well had to be removed or moved somewhere else, one, we'd have to find additional property, drill test wells, determine where we could find water in a different basin. Or in the same basin, but in a different location. And then the two key things are the water rights associated with that well. Anytime you move water rights, you run the risk of a protest or a possible forfeit. I'm not saying that would happen, but that's the risk you run when you move water rights. And then the second component is the distribution system. So when you put a well in, you have to pump it to a tank, you have to put the pipes in the ground to interconnect. That system is built around that well, so all that would have to be looked at. So just a relative comparison.
Something else I forgot to touch on when I covered the design of the bridge. I'm gonna back up here for a minute. I'm sorry. So this has an estimated cost for this bridge. This cost is in $2008. So the estimated cost in 2008 was $14.976 million for this 1,300-foot bridge.
So 25, 30 million now.
At least, yeah, I mean, I don't have a number for that. We would have to, do some preliminary engineering. But this is an expensive bridge. So looking back the other way. So now I want to talk a little bit about the SHABS option. This map here is one of the proposals. All of them roughly cover this. This one was just one of the higher resolution ones that I could put on a slide and have it make sense. But you might kind of recognize this because of the drainage master plan that we just took a look at. It largely follows that drainage master plan, and that's something that is one of the advantages of this potential option, is that it may be possible to kind of combine the two and work on them concurrently. I don't know, I mean, we'd have to look into that further, but it is something that I did want to point out. That the aspect on these are a little bit different, so it looks like it's a different shape. The one on the right doesn't go as far north, so I just wanted to point that out. There would also be a connection in here to Dayton Valley Road, which is not on this map here on the left. So I just want to point that out as well. The SHABS option is a 300-foot bridge at the far east end of Dayton Valley, connecting the planned extension of SHABS. Right of way through the right of way for this option is mostly through BLM property and through proposed development. So, and I'll cover that a little bit more in a minute. Section of the roadway would be paid for by developers because this is in our master plan. The developers have to develop the road, that section of road that goes through their property, and I'll show you what that would look like in a minute. And then, as I talked about before, it may be possible to combine portions of the project with the South Dayton drainage improvements. That's not a for sure thing. Again, all the engineering would have to be done, and we'd have to show that it would all work, but I do want to point that out. So here's the proposed SHABS bridge. It's a much shorter bridge. That's because the floodway down there is much more narrow. And so you can put in a shorter bridge. You can put in the 300-foot bridge. The estimated cost of this bridge in 2018, so again, it has gone up, but probably not as much as the last one, was $6 million. So remember the last study was in the Cardelli option was studied in 2008. This one was studied in 2018. So sorry, just wanted to make sure that was clear.
That's still too low. For today's prices, that's low.
Yeah, I don't dispute that at all, but it is something that at that time, that's what was called out as a rough estimate. So again, you would have to go through all the engineering and stuff to figure out what the actual cost is at today's dollars.
Still gonna be much more palatable than the other option.
Right. So the Shabs alignment there, you can see in the north section of that goes through BLM property. That entire section is BLM. That there's an existing 25-foot prescriptive right of way through the BLM property. We would have to go to BLM and get that widened, which, you know, we will be working on if this is the option that gets picked. Through private property down there, there is a small piece here where we have an 80-foot width through the private property here. And this connects to Fort Churchill Road. So that gets Chavs all the way to Fort Churchill. There is a road here currently. This section, this piece here, this is part of Aspen Creek. And I'll get to that in a minute. I just wanted to point out this parcel map here is kind of hard to read, but this is Highway 50. This shows Chavs here as a right of way, but it is only 20. This is the expired tentative map for Aspen Creek. I just talked a little bit about that section, but it does show this road through there. And as I mentioned before, if somebody were to pick up this development and actually build something there, they would have to build that road. Now, this tentative map was expired, so they would have to come forward with a new tentative map, start the whole process over again, if that were to happen. But I do want to point that out. That's private land that at least somebody at some point was talking about developing, and I would imagine that somebody will bring a proposal forward again. Here, that actually gets you all the way across the river because they own both sides of the river there, and this shows the proposed alignment there. Then you go to the Chavs alignment, and this is the proposed Fiddler route through the 900 and some odd acres that they own on the south side of the river there as well. And it shows it connecting down. Further, you can see on the left of the road, you can kind of see that drainage ditch there. That would be completed as part of the drainage master plan. And then that connects down onto BLM property again, where most of the rest of that alignment would stay on BLM property. This is Chavs looking north. This is north of Fort Churchill Road. And again, we already have right away there. This is proposed road looking north towards the river from the south side of the river. This is looking through Aspen Creek. And this is looking south towards the industrial park. And as the map had showed before, this would propose to curve around and connect with that industrial park. That's important because that would take a lot of the truck traffic off of the existing bridge in Dayton, because the trucks would have to go not through the neighborhoods, they would come out and around this way. And then this is Chavs at Highway 50. This already, you can see across the way, already connects into Copper Canyon. I'm not going to scroll back through. I should have pointed this out when I showed the 2010 master plan, transportation master plan, but it envisions a loop road all the way around Dayton. And essentially, the part through Copper Canyon is a part of that road. So this alignment actually already naturally connects with that loop road. And you can see here on the right, that's looking south again, towards the river. So I put together, and this covers the same information. So here's a summary of the two options. The Cardelli Super option, that's a 1,300-foot bridge span. The estimated cost of just the bridge in 2008 dollars was $14.967 million. Significant right of way is needed through private property. That's estimated at $10.245 million. These numbers are not including the well, which would have to be relocated as well. The Chavs option, it's 300-foot bridge span. Estimated cost in 2018 dollars was $16 million. That's just the bridge, or $6 million. I'm sorry. So thank you. $6 million. Just the bridge. The right of way is largely through BLM and proposed developments, and the developers will have to pay for some of the road costs as they develop out the property, so. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Open up the board for questions.
Yeah, I just got one question, Andrew. So besides the BLM land, you got the developers land. So if they don't come forward by the time we're ready to build this, we'll be looking to buy 100-foot right away from them
Correct,
at whatever market costs are.
correct, yeah.
I just wanted to put that out there. It's, you know, we hope the developer's gonna pay, but if we're ahead of them, it could go the other way.
Correct, so I know, Bidler had talked about it a little bit in an open meeting a few months back, and they said that they were willing to work with us on that piece. If this is the direction that the board goes, you know, we would start working with them on that to make sure that the right way was secure. But, you know, yeah, you're absolutely right.
It seems like thank you, Chairman Gray, and Mr. Haskins, thank you for the presentation. It seems like from past public participation, one of the concerns about the Chavez was that it no one's gonna maybe need to use it because it exits out farther east on 50. And so it's not gonna really cut down on congestion a whole lot. So, I mean, I know we're talking about a lot of the dollars, but is this, I guess what I wanna know, is this basically an emergency exit and maybe used for a few others? Or is it actually gonna get used by general public?
So I'll start off with, and Andrew can kick me when I'm wrong. So the answer to the question is yes and yes and maybe. So yes, initially, if we had the money today and we had everything in place and I told you we're starting construction, more likely it's going to be an emergency exit for the majority of the residents that live out here. There isn't a substantial amount of population out that direction. What we are able to do is we are now able to tell truck traffic, you don't go down Dayton Valley Road anymore. You have to take this exit, you have to go this way around, and you have to, when you get down at Lakes Boulevard, whether you're at Webster Road or wherever, you got to go back out to Highway 50 that direction. That's important because if you've driven Dayton Valley Road at all during the peak hours when school's in session, and you have tractor trailer rigs trying to make deliveries and school buses trying to get to schools and parents trying to get their kids to schools, and all the people that decide that they have to be working at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave Dayton at 10 minutes to 8, it becomes problematic. We anticipate that for some people, they're going to figure out, especially those folks that live on this side of the river who work at Tahoe Industrial Park, they're going to figure out that that's a quick way to go to get out of here. So we anticipate that it'll take a period of time. Are we going to see great multitudes of traffic utilizing that right away? No, we're probably not going to. But what it does provide is it provides Central Lyon Fire, Lyon County Sheriff's Office another way in to address emergency situations and emergency calls. I have received a phone call one night from Commissioner Grady. It wasn't one of his most pleasant phone calls, but it was a phone call that said, I'm stuck in traffic in Dayton Valley Road because of a car accident. Nobody can get in, nobody can get out. And unfortunately, people drive like idiots. And so we're going to see a little bit more of that as time goes on. So it provides us emergency access in and out. It provides us a way to route trucks. It provides us a way as development continues or grows or changes, alternative, and then it provides us the master plan does identify eventually, for lack of a better term, a McCarran Boulevard around the Dayton Valley area in the future. Well, I see it in my career, the Dayton Valley or the McCarran Boulevard full circle, probably not. But it does, the master plan does envision that. So again, as we addressed in the town hall meeting here, I don't know, a month ago or so, about Highway 50 traffic, the more we can keep local traffic off Highway 50 to do local business, the better it is for the folks on Highway 50 So it just kind of helps to assist with that process.
To also add a little bit to what Jeff was saying about, people commuting to work out at the industrial park. From time to time, I work at the utilities office in Dayton. We have an office there. And trying to turn left onto Dayton Valley Road in the morning, it backs up quite a bit.
Right. No,
I don't have a number for you, but
I just knew that that was public comment in the past, and I just want to bring it up. I definitely am about protecting taxpayer dollars too, and the price tag is considerably different.
And the whole purpose why we're having the discussion tonight, looking for some direction, is so that we can begin the process of getting things pre-engineered, so we can start applying for infrastructure grant dollars to start building these.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Huckabee.
I don't really have any questions. I appreciate you giving me a tour out there a couple months ago. Nice couple-hour tour from the south end of the county. I know we have a lot of congestion up here, and the fact that I can kind of go out and see where these roads are, what it means to the communities that are out there. The right-of-way problem with cutting into and buying people's houses in eminent domain is not something you want to go through. So I appreciate you taking me through and showing me that it's important that this in the county.
Mr. Henderson. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a preliminary question, and we're gonna come back and talk about this more later, but what type of funding sources have you guys looked at, or have you even gotten that far?
I can't give you funding sources until I have an idea where we're actually going to put it. Because then when I have actually where we're going to actually put it, then we can start pre-engineering, so we can start looking at what's available to do that. There are for bridges, there are actually may actually be dollars in infrastructure packages coming down to do the pre-engineering work before we even get to that. So that's why we need a location, so we can start figuring out which way we're going to go.
Right, and if to locate, whichever location, will still be within Campo area responsibility, and they can help us with this as well. Okay. So a little bit of trivia time here. Speaking of dollars and cents, and I'll direct this one to Jeff. What's the shortest state highway in Nevada?
It's a bridge.
I said Jeff, yeah, so just so that you don't know, I mean, there was a funding issue last time, and the state actually came in. So the bridge going across the river was paid for with state dollars, and it's actually the shortest state highway in Nevada because they paid for it, so. But that being said, we're up against that again with dollars, and see, and Gary thought we were gonna go to public comment, now we're gonna, no.
You're gonna be.
So, I know, anyway, okay, so any more board comment, questions, sir? Okay, we are gonna go into public comment here, and this is a little bit different agenda item that we had on the last one, so we are going to limit this one to 3 minutes. And it is comment, I'm sorry, but that being said, all right, so. Name for the record.
I live off of Sutro. For somebody to bring up, maybe the traffic is gonna be a little bit slower, rather than putting 18 people out of their houses. I think this is no brainer. Also, I think you're off on your prices. There's one of the smaller houses tomorrow on Sutro going up for 700,000. And most of the houses there are $1 million to 800.
Yeah.
And that's 18 people out of their houses, gone, property gone. For,
It was just.
Take a drive.
I never said that. Hold on. Yeah, no, he was just pointing out a question that he had received, and so, and this isn't,
Well, I think in the presentation, we made it quite clear that it was 18 people that would lose their home.
No, they 18 residences, they could probably a whole lot more people.
Yeah, a whole lot more.
So.
Mr. Chair, if I can make a point. So if we have to go eminent domain pursuant to state law, the most we can pay is what fair market value. Okay? So not only is somebody getting booted out of their house or property, they're not getting what their house could sell for 2 blocks down the road.
Right. And nobody here, just, I'll add on that, I don't think anybody here has any, I'm sorry, hold on, Mr. Anderson? No. Okay. Nobody here has any appetite for going down that road, condemning property and taking it from somebody. And so just, when comments were made up here, and I know Mr. Jacobson said he was relaying a comment that he got hurt, that had been brought to him, that they wanted brought up. So you know, it's just because somebody's expressing something up here doesn't mean that's their position, so let's, I just want to get that out there. Sir?
I'm Tim Sneeper. I live on Dayton Valley Road. I'm glad to hear that you're not planning on doing a major thing to Dayton Valley Road. One thing, if you raise that road about 2 inches, my house will flood. It hasn't so far. But that's all it would take. There is going to be a line put in the end of the Dayton Valley Road, now as I understand it. That traffic would be going out that way to the highway, probably instead of going all the way down through there. So mining traffic would be a big issue going out the new bridge. Like that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Wife again. I have a new suggestion, you know, I don't think anybody's ever explored. Ever since I found out that the county owns what, 120 or 160 acres where they're gonna put the new county buildings in there, which I think is approved and it's gonna be built pretty soon, you know, what if we basically continue a road, because this is all open land all the way over to the river. Put the bridge there, straight across, and somebody explored
Does it
that,
go
you know,
right through
because
some of our
it's also
backyards?
got a option for everybody else, you know, it's from the building out directly across the road. That's my 5 cents, you know, I want to put in there to suggest, you know, to maybe explore, you know, as a third option, you know, in order to do that. I mean, it wasn't possible in 2008 or 2018 because the county didn't own the land or it wasn't planned for it, but it's now available and it's on the map, so to speak.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mike Starkey again. Let's put in the bridge. Whatever one, this chalice, I don't even know where it comes in. I don't know the road. What I want to address is, I spent 37 years in the fire service, working state of California wildland fire 90% of the time. This whole area serviced by one bridge with one fire station staffed by volunteers, and I believe what, 2 engines there? 1 engine, okay. A wind-driven fire will take out houses here. Witness what happened last year down by Bishop. I personally lost 3 friends in a wind-driven fire in the 80s, where the growth, the vegetation was so sparse they could not light a fire. They walked away from their engine and away from their engine. Then the wind came up and killed 3 of them. Spanish Rack Fire at San Luis Obispo, if you want to look it up. The problem is, if we get a fire here with only one bridge, it's going to overwhelm the existing forces. The bridge will get clogged by people fleeing the area, so you can't get any additional forces in. And at the rate that they're building it here, it's only compounding over and over and over again. I think that bridge needs to go in before any further development is allowed here.
Yes.
Agree? I hear you. Your constituents have just spoken. Thank you.
I think I said something very similar to Mr. Page that night, that all the traffic was backed up on Dayton Valley Road.
Bingo.
Any more buildings?
Bingo.
Russ?
So Russ Herrick again, I just want to clarify, I thought I heard you say it was attached to Dayton Valley Road. Yes. All right. You said it was gonna go, did I misunderstand that it was gonna wrap around from Lakes Boulevard? Which one's it gonna be?
Both.
Yeah.
The master plan identifies both.
Yeah. Okay, so back to just what the last gentleman said, are you gonna continue to allow building and put people in harm's way until the bridge is put in?
And again, as I explained it before, it truly depends on the situation. If the board has the authority to address the growth from the perspective of public safety, and until such time as it gets to a critical point, which we're not there yet, the board has a hard time.
We're there.
From a legal perspective, the board has a hard time saying no to something if the person that owns the property, they're zoned correctly. They have no, they're not asking for anything special, that it's already master planned and allowed by law. The board has a hard time telling a private property owner they can't do with their property as they see fit.
How do we change the master
Sure.
plan?
Wait, hold on. Come up here and ask the question.
Okay. You asked it, but I'll ask it again.
With that in place, Why? You said earlier, we're dealing with the sins from the past fathers, and I know my time's shot up. It sure seems like we're about ready to go through the same thing. The people are still gonna be here. We're gonna be dealing with the sins from the ones before, because nobody wants to say no and do the right thing first. Want to put the bridge in, put it in. But stop the building so others won't be in this harm's way that everybody seems, and is like, it is very true that they are in harm's way.
Thank you, Mr.
Do the right thing first.
Okay, my name is Donna Evans. I'm nervous to be up here, but I live on Sutro Road. I've been there 29 years, and I really don't want to see my house demolished. That's what I have to say. And I know nobody else wants their property, in harm's way either. So I just wanted to throw that out. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Laura Starkey, and about 313 Jaeger Court. We have, over the last about year, watched the restaurant go from being just basically an empty lot to being rated. It's a huge, I don't know if you've seen the facility, it is huge. My husband and I counted, I think there was 48 bays for trucks, 18-wheelers to pull up to. The traffic that's going to be hitting us is going to be terrific. Okay, coming out of Lakes Boulevard, if they are forced to come out of Lakes Boulevard and get off across the current bridge onto Highway 50, it's going to be chaos. It'll be very difficult. And I know that this bridge won't be built very quickly, and it will be chaos for a while. I support the Chavez option. I'd like the board to approve the Chavez option because it does go across BLM land. It addresses the issue of the truck traffic that will be occurring. And it will really and truly, if you look at the distance, it's not very far. It's maybe, I doubt it's even 5 miles.
Yeah.
So it's not very far from the Sutro option. So really and truly, it is a good option. One thing you didn't address was Fort Churchill Road, what's going to be done in the cost of developing that. I'd like that addressed. And that's all I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Camille Vetrelli, Dayton resident. Just curious, what would it take to stop the building before the bridge is built? What do we have to do? Do we have to petition our commissioners? Do we have to hire an attorney? What is needed for us to have you guys really rethink about giving out all these permits and developers until this bridge is built, until we can handle the traffic out there? The homes behind the golf course, I was shocked when I went back there to see how many homes were back there. I really didn't realize. In my position, I have people giving me addresses. I don't even know where these streets are. And they're all out in Dayton Valley area, South Dayton Valley. And I'm just shocked, absolutely shocked how many people use that road and what the traffic is. And there is traffic jam in Dayton. Never thought there would be. It's been at the stoplight, it's horrible, especially during the workout. But we have to do something. We've got to do something. We can't be putting the cart before the horse all the time. And what would it take? What is it that we have to do to stop the building?
Buy the property. Well, Matt, I think I know where she's going with the same, more of a moratorium, and I was thinking maybe, Jeff, can we maybe get with the DA and have a discussion for our first meeting in August on what that tipping point would be, where we'd be on good legal ground to say, hey, we need to time out. And can we put that as a discussion item for our first meeting in August, please?
The bridge, if it's
Commissioner Gray, can I make a comment?
Who's that?
I don't know. It's
Scott.
Hold on, please. All right, I'm sorry, Rod, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, if I could, and I appreciate the board's indulgence. I understand the frustration with the infrastructure not being in place before development, but I think what
Your call.
needs to be communicated to the general public is the county does not build infrastructure. We do not have a road building department. The Lyon County Utilities does not install sewer and water lines. The development community puts that infrastructure in. They put it in, we inspect it to make sure it meets our standards, and then we accept it, and we accept maintenance of that. The calls to stop all development until such time as infrastructure is in place to support it means that nothing will be done.
Yeah, Mr.
And-
President, I don't think that's exactly what they're calling for. I think they're just asking for a timeout so we can figure out what we're gonna do with the bridge.
If we have, excuse me, if we have an idea of where the bridge is going to be, the developers will know that there is a plan coming. And then maybe we can work with the developers a lot easier to get part of that road in and to have that all done.
And maybe
But
that's
to
more
allow
realistic.
them to build homes.
Yeah.
May I continue?
Hold on, no, stop.
Yeah, I wasn't.
We need to get back on track here.
Okay,
I'm
so
done now.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And
So-
now,
we are in public comment, so under open meeting law, public comment, we shouldn't be interacting with staff.
I know.
Public
I
comment,
know.
having a discussion.
Didn't know he was going down there, so thank you.
all right,
Thank you.
I'm done with that.
You're fine,
I
thank
just, that's it.
Sir.
I'm William Abbott. I live on Comstock Road here in Dayton. In my past life, I was also a member of the Area G, LA County Disaster Planning Coordination Council. So I know a little bit of what I speak. Having one exit out of that with an increase in truck traffic during school hours and everything else that's going on is a recipe for disaster. It is a recipe for disaster. It cannot be allowed. We need to have a method to move that. And I'm all about businesses. I mean, business is good thing. I mean, we need to have people making a living and people doing business. That's not a bad thing. But we need to separate that traffic from our residential areas and our school children. That can't go on. We need to have a way to get out of there. When you got stuck on the bridge, I was stuck right there with you, my friend. I know exactly what that's about. Look at what happened in Greenville. It no longer exists. It's gone. If you're trying to get everybody out of the Dayton Ranchos area, then on this side of the river, through that one bridge, with a wildfire coming down on you, who's the gentleman that was the, yeah. He's not lying. This must be addressed. We need the bridge. It has to happen. And the moratorium on building may be the thing that helps us coordinate with the builders to get that done. Thank you.
Go ahead. Roger.
Remember that 98% of your stuff comes in on trucks, but I'm not talking about that.
Go ahead and sign in first
Oh, you guys. know
and
my-
state your name again, please. Sorry, buddy.
That takeaway from Dennis. Here's what you do, have the truck go up Como Road up there where Cinder Lights pit is. Put a road in across in front of Bruce Industries and tie it in that way. That'll take 90% of the truck traffic off of Dayton Valley Road. They'll all be up on there, and then if push comes to shove, do a roundabout there, so everybody can do what they're supposed to. Go up, well, hey, look in Carson, they do, you know. That's what I say, go up Como Road and cut across, and you can get rid of most of that truck traffic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Juliet Hanson, fully on road. Thank you for that comment. I live on Bullion. I would like to state for the record that I'm very opposed to a truck route going right in front of our property and all the properties on Bullion and continuing around to the warehouses. Trucks belong on the freeway. They don't belong driving around the whole backside of a neighborhood in rural Nevada. This is a rural neighborhood. We have 5-acre lots. Some of them are 2. Everybody moved there for quiet, for solitude, for our animals. We didn't move next to a freeway. We didn't choose to move in next to a truck route. The idea that trucks belong there rather than on the freeway is ridiculous. If I asked any of you commissioners, what do you think about a truck route? You know, right in front of your road, 700 feet out, FedEx trucks, web restaurant trucks, all those trucks. Do you want that?
Got it.
You want that noise? Do you want that? That's not that's not why you chose to live there. This is a whole community full of people that just want to live a rural lifestyle. It's quiet where we are. A truck route is unacceptable. So when you have trucks coming out onto Dayton Valley Road, and I know this has been suggested before, you really need a comprehensive transportation plan for the whole valley, just like you've done with the flood, with flood control or lack of flood control. I don't see a big transportation plan, and routing huge trucks around a residential community is just poor. That's a poor design. Trucks belong on the freeway.
One notion that, I think the Chavez plan is certainly the better plan. I wrote my last name is plan. I assume it's just a 2-lane road. Well, I would certainly suggest that you look at many bridges, or you go 2 lanes, and then when you get the traffic, you go the other 2. It doesn't increase the cost. Don't make it happen much sooner. So, yes.
Do any more comments? If you have any, ma'am, if there's anybody else with comments, please go ahead and line up over here so we know how many people are waiting. And we have anybody on that's got Patty pull this online?
Concerning the comment that Commissioner Bider made.
I'm sorry, ma'am, state your name for the record, please.
Margot Easley, and I'm in real estate. Denver just recently became a subsidiary of D.R. Horton. They are the largest home building company in the United States, okay? So they actually own the parcels that this road will be going through. There is no reason why Lyon County cannot demand, not ask, demand that they put the road through if they're going to go under Chavez, because they are planning to go ahead and build the development. And they will be building, I mean, that's why Bidler went in with it. Bidler will be giving the water. They will be doing that development. Maybe not right away, but it will be happening. They've got the money. They're going to hit Lyon County. Lyon County always goes, yes, as soon as they say lawsuit. So it will be happening, people. You got a big company, really big company, that's going to be doing what it wants to do. It's going to be screwed, okay? So demand it. Don't just ask. Demand, because you have that right. This is a rural area, obviously. Okay, they don't care whether you stay rural or not. Bidler and Lyon County have been in bed for a long time, and that's my way. I've been saying the whole time. I've been saying no, we need rural. I'm still fighting them. They have threatened me with a lawsuit. Okay, made me stop doing stuff because I can't fight it. I will. Thank you.
Ms. Polish. You're muted. There you go.
There we go. Thank you. My name is Patty Polish. I live at 235 Sutro Road. And obviously, I don't want to see it come down Sutro Road, but I have a question. In the discussion of Sutro Road, did we look into the relocation of all the utilities that have to be moved?
No.
Okay, so that would be an additional cost then that we're not seeing. Anyway, that's all I had to ask. Thank you.
That there is a fairly major power line that runs down Super as well.
So it's tit for tat. Any questions from the board? Any further questions? Okay, looking for a motion.
So I'd like to make a motion to direct staff and the county manager, or the county manager and staff, I'd be more like it. Although I would love to see staff direct you, okay.
Me too.
But anyways, I better rephrase that, to direct the county manager and staff to move forward on the road network and funding for a second bridge in the Dayton area to line up with, how do you pronounce that? Because I've heard it so many. It is Chavs? Chavs, see, everybody says it different.
Chaz Ranch.
Okay, Chavs. Okay, I started to say it that way, but I heard it 5 different ways tonight, so, yeah.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Okay, at this point, we're gonna call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I may, so if you recall, when we did the water sewer thing, Commissioner Keller requested a regular report, so he placed it on the agenda, probably starting in September, once we get some basic information. We will I won't be on every agenda meeting, but we will have a regular agenda item to provide the board with a briefing and update as to where we are with this, as well as the stormwater drainage plan. So those folks that are checking the agendas, they'll know that they're talking about it and getting a report back.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know, if you go to lion-county.org, you can subscribe to get agendas sent to your email. So you have them right there on your desk, so you can, or not only the county commission, but planning commission, your local advisory boards, the fair board, LEPC, just about everything that the county does is on that agenda center, so you can get that information. So you can keep an eye out. As I stated before, if you want to see change in your county, if you want to keep things going the way you want them to go, then it's up to you to be involved and keep pressure upon the commissioners, who then keep pressure upon me, and works its way down. Thank you.
And you beat me too. I was also gonna say on Facebook, there's a Facebook page where you can always get information as well on announcements and stuff. And you're always free to call us too. You know, if you have a question about what's going on, I mean, most of us are fairly accessible, so. We are going on to commissioner comments at this point, and I will start on my right, Mr. Hockaday.
I think it's said enough. Thank you.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one comment in general on all 3 of these items. I know staff is already on this, but in the current environment of the federal government printing money, we ought to see if we can't see if we can get them print some for us to take care of these projects. Yeah, the last 2 rounds of earmarks that came out, Lyon County got $0. Other counties around the state did get money, and they got money for projects similar to the bridge and the road network. So I want us to really look at pressuring our congressional delegation to help us fund, especially the bridge and the road area, because that is a safety issue. Thank you.
You know, I don't really have a lot to add other than, I just want to say, when we talk about fires and stuff, I don't know if everybody remembers when, before the USA Parkway was finished, that was one of the biggest concerns, that one way in and one way out. And thank God, when they did get the fire that ran down 80, it was coming into TRIC, there was a second way out because they weren't getting out to I-80. I know I have a daughter that works up there and a lot of friends, and it was like, thank God there was a second exit out of that area. So that, more than anything else that we've discussed tonight, if we can get this bridge done, I want it to be a safety thing for the residents here in Dayton.
Chairman, great, thank you. I just want to thank gentlemen from Far West for being here today and presenting, appreciate it. Also the fine folks at Dayton for coming in here and sharing your thoughts, and then also all the county staff that showed up. Thank you guys and gals.
Thank you. I want to echo the same sentiment. Thank you guys, everybody that showed up, that's taking part in this. We really do appreciate it. So many times things roll under the radar that we get no input on, and glad to see you all showed up and spent a long evening with us, going on 3 hours here. Staff.
That's my bedtime.
Yeah, no kidding. You guys, great job. Thank you. And thanks for being the heavy hitters.
May I ask just a last question on clarification of your vote?
No. Yeah, we've already got past that. We can afterwards to approach us, that's fine, but at this
I
point.
just wanna know if we've approved a
Okay,
road or just a bridge.
Staff, thank
Does
you guys very
anybody
much.
else have
Mr.
that
Reno,
question?
thank you very much. And Far West, thank you very much. And so we will go to our last round of public participation at this point. If you have a comment you'd like to make, you're more than welcome to. If not, we will adjourn the meeting. Any final public comment? Stuff that wasn't on the agenda.
Just want to say thank you guys for coming tonight.
And that was Mr. Herrick for the record.
Very excited. It is appreciated, Jeff, all of you guys, the fire station, all the work that was done here tonight. It means a lot. It really does.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
So with that, meeting adjourned.
Yeah.